petrified book. Archaeologists from Australia have stumbled upon a mysterious book-shaped artifact estimated to be more than 330 million years old. Yes, I know that not everyone likes it when I talk about thousands and millions of years. Therefore, this discovery caused a lot of controversy and speculation among scientists. Thomas Kaminsky, an antiquities researcher, claims that they found a mineralized book with a metal binding, but it is no longer possible to read it. Archaeology professor Jane Balme was also amazed by the find, although she expressed doubts about its antiquity. Other experts marvel at how the book's pages have survived for millions of years. Geology professor Ian Plimer explains that under certain conditions in an oxygen-free environment and under pressure, paper can petrify. Kaminsky believes that the depth at which the book was found indicates its authenticity. However, the question remains as to why it looks like a modern copy. Could this be an artifact left behind by a time traveler? Mummification of meat. Many people have heard about King Tutankhamun, but not many know that he was buried with 48 boxes of beef and poultry. In order to provide food for the pharaoh in the afterlife, his funeral preparations included food supplies. A new study by archaeologists reveals interesting burial customs of ancient Egypt. It turns out that the meat that was buried with the pharaohs was mummified, treated with special balms for preservation. This meat, called meat mummies, was common in Egyptian funerals, with the oldest examples dating back to more than 5,000 years ago and the earliest to 1,600 years ago. The latest study involved the analysis of 4 samples of meat mummies dated between 1386 and 948 BC, which were found in the tombs of high-ranking figures. Meats included cattle ribs, veal, and goat. Scientists conducted a chemical analysis of the meat and the bandages with which it was wrapped. They found that animal fat was used to coat goat and calf bandages, indicating its use as a preservative. However, the ribs of the cattle contain the remains of a complex balm of fat or oil and resin from the pistacia tree, which was a luxury in ancient Egypt. About 600 years later, after being used in the mummification of meat, this balm was used for human mummies. The deepest ancient tunnel. In China, they want to reach Cretaceous rocks that are 140 million years old. The task is ambitious. It is planned to drill through 10 layers of earth and reach a depth of 11,000 meters, which will become a national record. Work started in May of this year. While Russia wants to resume work on the Kola super deep well, China is already drilling in full swing. Let me remind you that the Soviet Kola well project, although it was not completed, made important scientific discoveries and planned to drill the earth to a depth of more than 15,000 meters. Work on the Kola Peninsula began in 1970 and continued for 2 decades. At a depth of 7 kilometers, the team had to face difficulties. Layered rocks got stuck in the equipment. Despite this, the final depth of 12,226 meters was achieved, but the project had to be closed in 1990 due to unknown explosion. Now China is looking to further explore the Earth's interior and plans to use its new borehole to study earthquakes and predict their occurrence. The project also aims to gain a deeper understanding of the internal structure of the Earth and its evolution. This opens up new opportunities for the development of technologies and solutions applicable in different industries. Let's hope that China, having modern technologies, will be able to find something interesting for the world of archaeology. Hundreds of Silesian bracteates. In the Polish city of Sprotava, archaeologists have found a unique 14th century treasure containing from 100 to 150 silver Silesian bracteates. The excavations were carried out on the territory where the Burger site was previously located, a narrow plot of land with a house with a small frontage to the street. Researchers have discovered the remains of a textile bag containing ancient coins that were minted mainly between 1250 and 1300. These thin plate coins were characteristic of Silesia in the 13th century, but by the beginning of the 14th century they began to be replaced by thicker coins. The origin of these coins lies in the coin workshops in Silesia, where their use was short due to regular withdrawals. People traded 4 old coins for 3 new ones, with the 4th coin held as a tax for the mint master. This prevented hoarding as the coins lost their value over time. It is assumed that the treasure could have belonged to a relatively wealthy person. The find is considered one of the most significant in the region, given the rarity of the surviving bracteates. Most of them were melted down for other uses. The Wicker Man. In the ancient Celtic cultures scattered throughout Europe, religious rites and rituals played a central role. One of the most mysterious and disturbing of these was the sacrifice in the Wicca Man. This large-scale structure, built from woven branches and foliage in the shape of a man, became a place for the ritual burning of animals and perhaps even people. Descriptions of such rituals have come to us thanks to Roman historians, especially Julius Caesar. In his notes on the Gallic War, he argued that the Druids, the religious leaders of the Celts, performed these rituals for prosperity and harvest. Captives, animals, and even volunteers were imprisoned inside the statue. After that, it was set on fire. The flame engulfing the wicker structure symbolized purification and renewal. Despite the evidence of Roman authors, archaeological finds confirming the existence of such rituals are extremely limited. This makes the Wicker Man a subject of debate and controversy among scholars. Ring with the inscription for Allah. A ring with Arabic inscription dating back to the 9th century was discovered by researchers from Stockholm University in the city of Birka, an ancient Viking trading center in Sweden. This unique piece of purple stone jewelry speaks to the Vikings' ties to the Islamic world, supporting the theory of trade between these cultures. Initial speculation was that the stone in the ring was an amethyst, but further research revealed that it was violet glass, a material that was rare at the time. Scientists believe that such glass could have come from Egypt or Mesopotamia, supporting the idea of trade links. There are traces of silver on the inside of the ring, indicating that it was purchased new before it became Viking property. This artifact supports the hypothesis of cultural and trade exchanges between Scandinavia and the Arab world, making it one of the most important finds of its time. Viking Sunstones. Imagine the Vikings, mighty seafarers who conquered the seas from Norway to North America. In sunny weather, everything was simple. They looked at the sky and swam where they needed to. But what to do if the sun is not visible? This is where the mysterious sunstone or solar tin comes into play. This crystal was not just a beautiful jewel, but also kind of Viking compass. With it, they could determine where the sun was in the sky even if it was hidden behind clouds or fog. The researchers puzzled for a long time what kind of stone it was until they realized that it could be Icelandic spa or corduroy. These crystals could split the light and show the path of the sun to within a few degrees. This story tells us that it is not necessary to use the technologies of the future. Our ancestors managed with the help of primitive objects to navigate the seas and oceans at any time of the day. Spicy artifact. In the Kangay Mountains in northern Mongolia, archaeologists have discovered a real sensation, a stone decoration in the form of a human phallus. Yes, you heard it right. The small carved piece of graphite, 4.2 centimeters long, is the oldest known representation of a person taking into account gender characteristics. Believe it or not, its age is estimated to be between 42,400 and 41,900 years old, so it falls on the Upper Paleolithic. Such phallic pendants are something new in Paleolithic history. They say that early hunter-gatherers already used sexual characteristics as symbols. On the pendant, you can see the recesses, which according to scientists resemble the male genital organ. The most interesting thing is that the back of the pendant is smooth, while the front is not. It looks like the pendant was worn around the neck. The surface of the pendant is slightly worn, suggesting that it has been passed down from generation to generation. The Curse of Amenhotep's Tomb. In the Valley of the Kings in Egypt lies the tomb of Amenhotep, shrouded in dark legends. An ominous inscription is carved on the walls of the tomb, warning of dire consequences for those who dare to disturb the peace of the pharaoh's eternal sleep. According to the curse, any robber will lose his earthly wealth, die in the sea waves, burn in flames, leave no descendants, be deprived of burial, and die of hunger. In addition, the bones of the intruder are threatened with destruction, foreshadowing a terrifying fate in the afterlife. And this is only part of the terrible predictions. Other horrors await anyone who dares to disturb the pharaoh. Of course, there were no officially documented deaths associated with these curses. For now, would you dare to visit this tomb? Write in the comments under the video. Noah's Ark in Turkey. There is a place in Turkey that many believe to be the final refuge of the legendary Noah's Ark up to the biblical flood. Researchers working in this area are confident that they have found confirmation of this. According to the Bible, after the subsidence of the flood that destroyed all sinners on earth, Noah's Ark, on which he, his family, and pairs of animals were, stopped in the mountains of Ararat. The dimensions of the Ark were enormous, about 134 by 22 by 13 meters. The Pioneer Formation in Turkey, discovered in 1956, attracts attention because its outline resembles an ark. Despite various claims about the evidence found, many archaeologists have refuted this theory. A Turkish-American team of researchers analyzed rock and soil samples believed to contain remains of the ark. They claim that the finds indicate human activity in the area around 5300 BC, which coincides with the estimated time of the flood. However, the presence of traces of human activity does not prove the existence of a giant wooden ship or a catastrophic flood. Archaeological evidence does not support the existence of the global flood described in the Bible. Most likely, the theme of the Great Flood is a later version of the Mesopotamian flood story mentioned in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Some argue that a localized flood may have occurred in the Mediterranean and Black Sea around 7,500 years ago and provided the inspiration for these stories. But even this interpretation is disputed. So the search for Noah's Ark faces the same problems as the search for Atlantis. Both are based on trying to find evidence for something that has no basis outside of specific stories. Skeleton of a woman without a face. In Germany, archaeologists discovered a mysterious burial from the 9th century. The man lay unharmed, but the wife's facial bones were not preserved, and no funerary objects were found next to her. Excavations were carried out near Eisleben, on the site where the royal palace of Helfta was once located. The woman's height was 1.5 meters, but her skeleton had a defect. Her face has been hollowed out. The man apparently held an important position, perhaps he was a high-ranking official or a military man, as confirmed by the objects found on him: a knife, a belt, and parts of an official staff. At the same time, no accessories were found on the woman, which became especially interesting for researchers. Felix Biermann from Saxony-Anhalt suggested that the woman could be a Christian, while her husband still adhered to pagan traditions. This could explain the lack of funerary objects, since the Christian tradition rejected early decorations after death. Civilization Rescue Machine. Archaeologists from the British Museum have made a surprising discovery in the Iraqi city of Gursu, which they called the advanced technology of the ancient Sumerians. It turns out that the structure, previously thought to be a temple, is actually a water canal built more than 4,000 years ago. Modern researchers have found that this canal was created by the Sumerians as a means of combating drought. Archaeologists describe this ancient structure as a kind of trench for delivering water to the fields. However, this was not just an irrigation structure, but a complex system that researchers call a drought-fighting machine. Architect and ecologist Ibru Turan notes the uniqueness of the find, as such technologies were considered possible only in the 18th century. This design was of great importance as a way to combat the water crisis of the time. The canal structure consisted of two symmetrical mud brick structures. Their length was about 40 meters, width 10 meters, and the walls reached a height of 3.5 meters. The discovered device was located on a 19-kilometer-long canal that crossed a body of water, which also allows it to be considered the oldest known bridge in the world. Mermaid from India. Not many people have heard of the archaeological site of Chandrakataga in India, which is located about 35 kilometers from Kolkata. Chandrakataga was a prosperous port city involved in international trade where people lived since 400 BC before 1250 AD. Today, only the ruins of a brick Buddhist temple from the 10th century remain on this site. Interest in Chandrakataga arose due to the many terracotta artifacts dating back to the Shunga period, i.e. 200–100 BC. Most of them were stolen and taken abroad, and only a few fragments survived in Indian museums. Although the complex was discovered in 1906, the Archaeological Survey of India under British control did not carry out excavations here. Many of the stolen items are now in museums around the world, such as the Metropolitan. Two terracotta plates depict a mermaid, a rather rare image in Indian culture. In one, a mermaid swims by a lake holding something that looks like a mirror or a flower. People on the shore look at her her as if she was a miracle. The great chief arrived in a chariot to see this creature. On another, a mermaid was caught in a net by fishermen. People wave at her and she answers them without showing any fear. Looking at these reliefs, I wondered, are they not a reflection of ancient legends or real events that took place in Chandrakutra 2,200 years ago? Perhaps mermaids were not a figment of the imagination, but real sea creatures in ancient times. Write in the comments under the video, do you believe in the existence of mermaids or something similar? It's no wonder that the depths of the seas and oceans have not yet been explored. An absolute rarity. In 2022, archaeologists discovered a unique item in a woman's grave, an iron folding chair. After restoration, it was shown to everyone. The find was made in the village of Anzey, Germany, during the excavation of a burial site from the 7th century. The grave contained the remains of a woman aged 40-50 and a number of artifacts, including a multicolored necklace and brooches. A male burial with luxurious weapons was found nearby, indicating Frankish influence in those days. The restored folding chair was presented at the conference Archaeology in Bavaria. It consists of 2 parts connected by an axis and is decorated with brass decorations. The pillars show traces of seat fastenings, probably made of fur. Such chairs are rare in burials. The find indicates the high social status of the deceased. In Europe, only 29 graves with similar chairs are known, and only 6 of them are made of iron. Professor Matthias Fiel expressed delight at the find, emphasizing its historical value. He noted its importance for understanding the socio-cultural aspects of the early Middle Ages. This chair is a testament to the rich history hidden beneath the earth. Visby lenses. A favorite pastime of archaeologists and historians is playing what if. Many moments from the past, even seemingly insignificant ones, could radically change the course of human history. For example, what if the so-called Visby lenses fell into the hands of an early medieval scientist and began the study of optics in Europe 500 years earlier? The Visby lenses are a collection of high-quality optical lenses found on the Swedish island of Gotland in 1999. They date back to the 11th and 12th centuries and are made of quartz. Some lenses show signs of alteration, probably for mounting in the silver frames that make them so recognizable. These lenses are reminiscent of the reading stones or Abbas ibn Furnus. This suggests that the lenses were produced in the Byzantine or Islamic empires, then brought to Scandinavia and remade to suit local tastes. Lenses of this type could be used as magnifying glasses for reading or for viewing the details of objects. They could also serve as decoration. Interestingly, when compared with modern lenses, the image quality of antique lenses is almost as good. However, the origin of the lenses remains a mystery. The appearance and disappearance of these lenses in the Scandinavian world raises questions. Did they buy the first lenses or receive them as trophies? Did an Islamic or Byzantine artisan come to Gotland? Or was it the creation of a brilliant inventor from Gotland? Regardless of the origin of the lenses, the question can be asked: what if they had fallen into the hands of the inventor who created the telescope 500 years before Galileo? What if Vikings could explore our solar system? What if the science of optics had begun to develop 500 years earlier? UFO in the USSR. At the end of the USSR and after its collapse, UFOs became a frequent topic of discussion. Residents regularly reported strange objects in the sky, special shows were shown on television, and urban myths circulated among people. Some UFO evidence involves secret missile tests that the general public was unaware of. In the 70s, 80s, stories about UFOs spread in the USSR. There were legends about a UFO crash in Yakutia in the 70s, a UFO explosion on the Kola Peninsula in 1981, and its destruction by a nuclear installation in Kazakhstan in 1983. Another story tells about mushroom pickers who allegedly photographed the interior of a flying saucer and then their traces were lost. There are even photographs that supposedly prove a UFO crash in the USSR, but upon closer examination they raised doubts. Soviet UFOs were more likely a manifestation of gnosis rather than evidence of extraterrestrial civilizations. There have also been cases in the United States when UFOs were caught on video video, including those filmed by the military. For example, in July 2019, an unidentified object was spotted near the USS Omaha. The Pentagon suggests that UFOs may be of extraterrestrial origin. Even astronauts on the ISS observed strange objects, but often these turn out to be satellites. In the United States, there is laser equipment capable of creating plasma images that are sometimes mistaken for UFOs. But even with all these explanations, some cases remain a mystery. What do you think is really behind the UFO phenomena? Fantasy, technology, or something else? Ivory figurine. In the Hohlfels cave in Germany, archaeologists have found a piece of ivory carved with unprecedented precision. This mysterious detail appears to be part of an artifact found 20 years ago. So what is it? Big horse head? Or perhaps a bear or a lion? Professor Connard of the University of Tübingen and his team suggested the figurine was carved around 35,000 years ago during the Ice Age and now consists of 5 fragments found at different times. The current find, a piece of ivory measuring 4 by 2.5 by 0.55 centimeters with fine engravings, was identified as the right shoulder and chest of the animal. This prompted scientists to look for the rest of the figurine among the many ivory artifacts, and they found another part that cannot be directly connected to the rest of the body. Maybe it's part of the left front leg. What do you think? Skeleton with intact brain. Imagine a giant 45-hectare mound that looks like a heart in aerial photographs. It is called the Heart of Western Anatolia for a reason. Now comes the fun part. For the first time in the history of Turkish archaeology, scientists have discovered well-preserved skin remains. And what else? Remains of the brain. Imagine the remains of a brain that is already 3,700 years old. Finds of such antiquity are something incredible. They were a young guy, 15-18 years old, and a middle-aged man. Apparently, their house was set on fire during the Bronze Age and they did not have time to get out. It's scary to imagine, but it was thanks to this fire that the remains were so well preserved. This amazing mound was the real capital of its region in ancient times, but around 1700 BC, it was completely destroyed by attack. And now comes the main question. How is this possible? How could the remains of brain and skin survive after such a long time? Thanks to extremely high fire temperatures. This is truly a unique and rare find. City of the era of the legendary King Hammurabi. At Tel Mohammed in Iraq, an international team of archaeologists has discovered the remains of an ancient fortress. These ruins date back to the era of Hammurabi, the famous Babylonian ruler who became famous for his code of laws. New finds indicate that the city was abandoned after the fall of Babylon to the Hittite king Marsilius I in 1595 BC. This conclusion is supported by historical texts found at the excavation site. The researchers focused on studying the northeastern part of the city, where, following descriptions of ancient texts, they discovered the remains of a fortress wall, a canal, and a potential port near the Tigris River. Scientists believe that canal may have been part of a complex sewer system created using terracotta pipes to quickly drain wastewater. Archaeologists also discovered a staircase to the high terrace on which the tower stood, and a nearby cistern, which originally served to collect water but was later converted into drainage. Within the city walls, structures related to grain processing and bread preparation were found. Of particular interest are the furnaces used to liquefy the bitumen and the sacred bathroom with altar. Nearby were tombs associated with ancestor worship, referred to in ancient texts as kispum. Other finds include cylinder seals for administrative purposes, decorated with images of the era, and votive terracotta items from the 2nd millennium BC. Ron prayer. In the silent reaches of Israel, on the site of an ancient monastery near Jerusalem, archaeologists have discovered something unusual: a stone block that contains an ancient text that is about 1,500 years old. This artifact contains a passage from Psalm 86 known as the Prayer of David. Surprisingly, the text was in ancient Greek, the language that was the standard for writing the New Testament at that time. Visually, this stone stood out with a carved cross, but what surprised scientists even more was that the prayer was inaccurate. Where it should have been, "Hear me, Lord, for I am faithful to you," it was written, "Jesus Christ, protect me, for I am poor and in need." Most likely, the author made a mistake due to his imperfection in Greek, preferring his native Semitic. The site of the discovery, a monastery in Hyrcania, was built on the ruins of a fortress built 2,100 years ago by the Hasmonean dynasty. Under the rule of the Byzantine Empire, the monastery flourished, continuing its life even even after the advent of the Rashidun Caliphate. Among other valuable finds, it is worth noting a gold ring with turquoise, probably intended for a child. The ring is decorated with the Arabic inscription Mashallah. The Gazan Pyramid in Kazakhstan. In 2016, in the wide open spaces of the Karaganda region of Kazakhstan, archaeologists discovered something incredible: Sebegazan Pyramid, a stepped structure that may open a new chapter in Turkic history. This construction, belonging to the Scythian Saka culture, is part of the Begazi Dandibai civilization, which flourished in the Bronze Age. The pyramid, rising on Karazartas Hill on the left bank of the Tel Dinor, just 90 kilometers from Karaganda, became the last refuge for the leader of the local nomads. Research has shown that its age ranges between the 12th and 14th centuries BC. Artifacts found inside speak of the turbulent history of the steppes, from metal exports to religious rituals, which together lead us to the emergence of statehood in these places. The proto-urban settlement of Kent, near which sacrificial altars were found, indicates deep connection with the Karasuk culture and even with ancient Mesopotamia. Medieval Curse of the Devil. In Germany, archaeologists made a unique discovery during the construction of the town hall in Rostock. On the site of a former cesspool, next to a 14th century house considered one of the most beautiful in northern Germany, a 15th century tablet with a curse was discovered. The text on the tablet is written in Gothic script, common from the 12th to the 17th centuries. Engraved on it are the words, Sathanas Toki Beelzebub Henrik Berith, addressed to Telekan Henrik. These cursed tablets, created from thin sheets of lead, were popped during the Greco-Roman period. They were used to appeal to gods, spirits of the dead, with requests to influence people or objects. This find in Rostock is especially rare because of the mention of Beelzebub, another name for the devil. Such curses could be used to break off relationships due to the unhappy love, jealousy, or the desire to bring trouble to the people mentioned in the curse. Roswell Disc. The Roswell Disc is a mystical artifact rumored to have been found near Roswell, New Mexico, after the famous 1947 UFO incident. According to some reports, the disc was part of the wreckage of an identified flying object. The disc was a round metal plate with a diameter of about 3 meters, with unusual symbols and markings on the surface that could not be attributed to any known terrestrial language. The material from which the disc was made turned out to be unidentified and had strange properties. Some sources claim that the disc was given into military hands and studied in secret laboratories. Those who have been able to see it have spoken of its potential connection to extraterrestrial technology and the ability to store information superior to all earthly counterparts. Over time, the Roswell Disc has become a symbol of conspiracy theories and mysteries related to UFOs. Its existence is still disputed and is the subject of debate among scientists and researchers of the paranormal. The disc has become a legend in UFO circles, and many believe it is kept in secret government archives, along with other artifacts that point to extraterrestrial interference in the affairs of mankind. Buddha Iron Man. This is an amazing find that has shocked scientists around the world. This statue, about 24 centimeters high and weighing 10 kilograms, was created from a fragment of a meteorite. The specimen represents the image of the Buddhist god Vaishravana, who symbolizes protection and wealth. The origin of the statue has been carefully studied by researchers. Based on the results of the analysis, it was determined that the material for the creation was taken from the Changam meteorite, which fell on the border of Mongolia and Siberia about 15,000 years ago. It is believed that the statue was created in the 11th century AD on the territory of Tibet. It is amazing how the ancient masters, without even suspecting the cosmic origin of the material, were able to so skillfully process and transform it into a work of art. In 1937, Ernst Schaffer's expedition, funded by Nazi Germany, discovered the statue in Tibet and brought it back to Germany. Subsequently, its origin and material remained a subject of controversy and mystery for a long time, until recent scientific research revealed its amazing history. Today, Iron Man stands not only as a majestic work of art, but also as a testament to the unique combination of nature and human artistry. Ancient Glass Workshop. In the Czech Republic, in the village of Nemčice, Researchers have found treasures of truly royal proportions, thousands of gold underwater huts, and even glass jewelry. And the most interesting, in Namczyce, it seems that there was the oldest glass workshop in the north of the Alps. Archaeologists have not found tools for making glass, but they have found many glass products of varying degrees of completion. This important discovery confirms the existence of an ancient glass workshop in Namczyce. They also found several more amber items, as well as a building similar to those used for ritual purposes in Namczyce. The finds show that this place was not just a workshop, but also an important place for rituals. Plus, over the past 20 years, 2,000 gold and silver coins have been found here, which strengthens the belief that Namczyce was an important stop on the Amber Road in the 3rd-2nd centuries BC, connecting settlements near the northern, Baltic, and Mediterranean seas. 7,800-year-old figurine. In the west of the Turkish province of Izmir, in the Ilukik Mount, archaeologists made an impressive discovery. They managed to find a clay figurine of a female figure, which is about 7,800 years old. Professor Özlem Çevik, who is leading the excavations, emphasized the importance of this site as the first settlement of farmers in the region. This mound is one of the most ancient settlements in western Anatolia. Archaeologists have discovered artifacts here that are 8,850 years old. For many generations, people lived here, building villages one after another. One impressive artifact was a clay figurine of a woman found in recent excavations. Researchers have previously found such figurines, but many of them were broken. This is the 3rd figurine found in perfect condition. There is an assumption that these figurines are images of gods. However, some were found in landfills, making this theory less likely. Perhaps the figurines were used in various rituals associated with important life moments, such as the birth of a child or the harvest. Name of Jesus Christ. While studying the remains of a man from Sudan, scientists at the University of Warsaw discovered a religious tattoo with a Christian symbol. These remains were found near the Ghazali monastery, dating back to the Middle Ages. On the leg of the deceased, who passed away about 1,300 years ago, a tattoo was discovered depicting a chrisma, a monogram of the name of Jesus Christ created from the Greek letters chi and rho. In addition, the Alpha and Omega symbols were depicted nearby. This symbol first appeared in 324 AD during the reign of Emperor Constantine. Alpha and Omega are the beginning and ending letters of the Greek alphabet, symbolizing the idea of God as the beginning and end of everything. An interesting fact is that the tattoo is located on the right leg because, since it is there, according to scientists, that a nail could have been nailed during the veneration of Christ. This religious marking indicates the man's Christian faith. However, it is not established whether he was a monk from the Ghazali monastery, since his remains were found in a nearby cemetery reserved for local residents. According to the analysis, he was 35-50 years old at the time of death. At that time, the region known as Nubia included parts of modern Egypt and Sudan, and Christianity was the main religion. Despite the fact that the remains were found 7 years ago, the unique tattoo was only recently discovered and is only the second known case of tattooing in medieval Nubia. Ritual figurines. Built after 1325, the Great Temple served as the spiritual center of Tenochtitlan until 1521, when the Spanish conquerors destroyed it. But thanks to the efforts of the Temple Mayor Project and INAH, the history of this temple comes to life again before us. The Temple Mayor was not just a building, it was a place of worship for Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc, symbolizing war and fertility. Today, its remains can be seen near the Zocalo in Mexico City. Recent excavations have uncovered the Tepetlacali, a treasure where figurines and various objects were found. These finds tell us about the ancient culture and rituals of the Aztecs. According to archaeologist Lopez Lujan, these figurines had special significance in religious rites. A stone chest was also found, indicating the reign of Montezuma I, which contained more than 186 relics. These finds are evidence of the rich and unique culture of the Aztecs. Real fragments of the Book of the Dead. In the 19th century, Sir Thomas Phillips, a British collector, dreamed of becoming the owner of all the books on the planet. He amassed a collection of 60,000 manuscripts and 50,000 books. Among them were 19 fragments of the Book of the Dead. For many years, his heirs plundered and sold the library at auctions. In the 1970s, these relics passed to Hans Krause, a prominent New York bookseller. In 1983, Krause and his wife donated the fragments to the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, where they were hidden from humanity for many years. Only recently, the museum decided to show the public 7 fragments of these artifacts. The Book of the Dead is not your average book. This is a collection of 200 prayers and spells designed to help the souls of the departed in their journey through the afterlife. It was a kind of ancient guide for the soul. Despite the name, the ancient Egyptians paid more attention to live in life in an attempt to curb their fears of death. The goal of the deceased was to reach a paradise world reminiscent of his native Egypt and unite with the deities participating in the eternal cycle of rebirth. Only the upper echelons of society could afford to have a Book of the Dead with personalized spells. At the exhibition, visitors could see scrolls belonging to temple priestesses named Aset and Ankheseneset, as well as strips of linen with spells for mummification. Particular attention is drawn to the court hall scene, where the scales decide the fate of the deceased. If the heart of the deceased is light, he goes to heaven. If it is heavy, eternal autumn awaits him. Remains of an ancient market. In Northampton's Market Square, archaeologists have discovered unique finds that open new pages in the city's history. Among them are a possible punishment post and traces of an unknown market hall. A team from London's Museum of Archaeology found fragments of medieval shoes, textiles, ceramics, and animal bones. In the center of the square, they found a stone building, possibly a market chamber. Another building may predate the creation of the market in 1236. The discovered structures may be depicted on a 17th century map. In the south of the square, they found the Great Conduit built by Edward IV. They also found a medieval pillar that could have been used for punishment. After the research, the structures will be closed and the found objects will be stored in the museum. Gloomy burial. In Spain, archaeologists discovered a unique burial about 6,000 years old. 2 massive stone tombs were the burial place of more than 20 men, women, and children. These finds are distinguished by unusual funeral rites. The flesh was removed from the bodies of the deceased immediately after death, and the bones were broken in several places. Scientists found multiple fractures of the hands and traces of cuts on the bones, which indicates the removal of flesh with stone tools. This could have been done to speed up the process of decomposition of the bodies, but the true reason remain a mystery. It is possible that some bones were used as relics or in funeral rituals involving cannibalism, which also characterizes the Upper Paleolithic in northwestern Europe. Mummified babies. Remember the famous pharaoh Tutankhamun? His tomb, discovered almost 100 years ago, still provides scientists with discoveries. In the tomb, along with Tutankhamun, were the mummies of 2 children. There were no DNA identification technologies then, so these findings were kept secret and the children were nicknamed 317A and 317B. In modern times, DNA analysis has shown that these 2 girls, who did not live to see their birth, were most likely the daughters of Tutankhamun. One of them lived for about 4 months and the second was almost full term. The researchers think that the girls were some kind of protectors of their father in other worlds. After all, the ancient Egyptians believed in life after death and took a lot of things with them to the tomb for protection on a journey to the afterlife. So the story of Tutankhamun and his daughters is another amazing chapter in the Book of Ancient Egypt. Armored dragon in Mongolia. In the city of Chifeng, where the mysterious landscapes of Mongolia merge with history, archaeologists have made an amazing discovery: a dragon made from mussel shells. This unusual dragon is part of the ancient culture of Hongshan, a people who turned jade into art thousands of years ago. They created figurines that look like pigs, dragons, and even embryo dragons. Our mussel dragon was found in the territory of Kaitaupo. These shells, connected together, tell about the mystical beliefs of the Hongshan people about their rituals and traditions. According to experts, such objects were often used in ritual ceremonies. Son Jinshan, a leading expert in this field, considers this find the key to understanding the worlds of the ancient dragons of the Hongshan culture. Elon Musk about the past. Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla and SpaceX, is a future-oriented person who is still very respectful of the past of mankind. He believes that understanding history and understanding ancient civilizations can provide the key to solving modern problems. Musk often refers to ancient cultures such as the Roman Empire or the pharaonic dynasties of Egypt to show how technological breakthroughs and socio-cultural changes can have both positive and negative effects. One example is his mention of the huge library of Alexandria that was destroyed. Musk argues that the loss of the knowledge of this library has delayed the development of mankind for centuries, and that is why it is so important for us to preserve and transfer knowledge. Following this logic, he calls for the conservation of Earth's resources, studying the lessons of past civilizations, and for the development of space expansion as insurance against possible catastrophes. For Musk, history is not just the lessons of the past, it is also a tool for planning the future aimed at the benefit of all mankind. Gold coins on the side of a pagan temple. All items found in Wingram are truly unique to researchers. These small square coins, or perhaps amulets, reflect the culture and art of a distant era when the ancient people of Northern Europe practiced paganism and created complex rituals using such objects. The discovery in Wingram is an important evidence of the history of the early Middle Ages in the region and evidence of active religious life. Gold artifacts could serve as symbols of wealth and status and also serve a religious or magical function. The fact that they were discovered in the area of an ancient pagan temple only confirms this. Many archaeologists and historians hope that future excavations will bring even more discoveries and help restore the appearance and function of such objects. We may still have a lot to learn about the lives and beliefs of the ancient peoples of Norway. The oldest knives made from shark teeth. On the Indonesian island of Sulawesi, archaeologists have found two tiger shark teeth turned into knives that are about 7,000 years old. This find provides evidence of the ancient use of shark teeth as weapons. Before this, the oldest specimens discovered were 2,000 years younger. These dental blades are associated with the mysterious Tolian culture, ancient hunter-gatherers who lived on the island long before the arrival of Neolithic farmers. The teeth, about 2 meters long, have special holes indicating their attachment to the handle. According to scientists, these blades may have been used in rituals or battles. While shark teeth may seem like an unusual choice for a weapon, ancient cultures used what was available. These knives were sharp, but their blades could quickly become dull. Ancient people around the world used shark teeth for cultural purposes, turning them into weapons or even tattoo tools. This showed their respect for these marine predators. A unique product in the capital of the ancient kingdom. Archaeologists in the ancient city of Hattusa, the capital of the Hittite kingdom, discovered a unique object decorated with ivory about 2,800 years old. The discovery was made near the Turkish village of Bogaskale, where archaeological excavations have continued for more than 100 years, often leading to the discovery of ancient artifacts. The found artifact, made of ivory, measures approximately 30 centimeters in length and 10 centimeters in width. It stands out for its grace and includes images of a sphinx, a lion, and the so-called trees of life. It is believed that this item was used as a decoration for a wooden box or furniture. The artifact is broken on both sides, but the upper and lower parts are preserved in their original form, which suggests that it was originally longer. This discovery provides new insight into the artistic and cultural aspects of the Hittite kingdom and provides insight into the skill and talent of ancient artisans. Ancient doll in Italy. Recently in Italy, archaeologists discovered a clay figurine about 7,000 years old. This treasure was carefully preserved by the Batifrata cave, where the first agricultural communities on the peninsula lived. This artifact is a real rarity, especially for Italy, where there are practically no such finds. The figurine is a doll whose face is depicted rather schematically, but the most interesting thing is her hairstyle and jewelry made with special attention to detail. Think for yourself, 7,000 years ago, people used this cave not only as a source of water or a place for living, hunting, and farming. They performed their mysterious rituals there, and it seems that this small clay doll was one of the main figures in these rituals. Unfortunately, we still have little evidence about exactly how these ancient rituals took place, but this figurine is a valuable key to unraveling the mysteries of the past. Therefore, subscribe to the channel, and together we will learn more about the mysterious history of the Batifrata cave and its ancient inhabitants. Unidentified head. Heads from Liedenberg is a set of clay heads discovered in South Africa. They are dated 500 AD and are the oldest known examples of Iron Age art south of the equator. In 1957, as a 10-year-old boy, Ludwig von Bassing found these heads on his father's farm. A total of 7 heads were found. 2 of them are large enough to put in a child's head, the other 5 are half the size. They are all different, but each has something in common. For example, clay neck rings, which perhaps symbolize prosperity. Perhaps they were worn as masks during rituals, or they were attached to something during ceremonies. In the Bronze Age, they traded cities. The noisy earthquake in Turkey in 2023 brought not only destruction, but also discovery. In Kahramanmaraş, where everything happened, there was an ancient mound of Tel Atchin. There once was the city of Alalak, a real center of the Bronze Age. Alalak was found in the 2nd millennium BC. It was part of the Yamhad, the gigantic empire of that era. Palaces stood there as early as 2000 BC. Immediately, the mysterious Yaram Lim come across our eyes. Who is he? Brother? Son? This question has plagued scholars for a long time, until recent findings point to his fraternal relationship with the ruler of Yamhad. And so, after the earthquake, archaeologists discovered a clay tablet. It's got cuneiform on it. It was an agreement on the sale of an entire city. And what is most interesting, the buyer was our Yaram Lim guy. It looks like an old receipt from a store that hasn't been opened yet. For a long time, it was thought that cities were donated or exchanged, but not sold. This plate changes everything. Secrets of the origin of silver. New story reveals for us the secrets of ancient trade. From the distant 2600 BC, the Bronze Age sends us its regards. That's the time when the ancient Greeks and Egyptians already knew what global trade was. Archaeologists from Australia, France, and the US have explored silver objects from ancient Egypt and found out that the Greeks and Egyptians traded with each other much earlier and more actively than we thought. But there is no silver ore in Egypt. However, silver still got there, and this began in the Bronze Age. Scientists have found that the source was not just the Greeks, but the Greeks from the islands of the Cyclades and Lavrian. So it looks like the ancient Egyptians went shopping all the way to Greece. Evidence of this trade was a silver bracelet, which, as it turned out, was the property of Queen Hetephes I. That and other jewelry have been waiting in the wings for several decades in a museum in Boston. Scientists have used all their skill and modern methods of research to understand what the bracelet is made of, and their labors were crowned with success. They were able to determine that silver was mined on the Greek islands of the Aegean Sea. Interestingly, trade transactions in Egypt began to be recorded only in the Middle and New Kingdoms on papyrus, but there are a few documents left about the Old Kingdom. But even this did not become an obstacle on the way to the truth for modern researchers. This ancient bracelet is a vivid example of how trade links united different civilizations and cultures and reminds us of humanity's undying interest in exchange and interaction. Did it all start that long ago? Winged Mummy. I want to remind you of an amazing story that can be mistaken for the plot of a science fiction movie, but it was the reality of 1914. Imagine, a group of brave merchants sets off across the ocean in search of undiscovered artifacts, and they find it, a glass sarcophagus like in a fairy tale, and inside it, oh a miracle, a sleeping priest named Gomez, straight from the lost city of Atlantis. At the bottom of the ocean, our heroes also found other items, for example, rods with text in an incomprehensible language. Scientists were able to decipher them, and now we know that this priest volunteered to go into a long sleep in order to return one day and tell about his lost city. However, there is another interesting thing. This is not the only sarcophagus. As the text indicates, there are many of them, and each of the priests wakes up once a century to check whether humanity is ready to accept the knowledge of the great Atlantis. And if we're still not ready, they go back to their dream. The story gets even more interesting. The sarcophagus falls into the hands of the Soviet Secret Service, where it begins its thorough study. And here something unusual happens. When the leading figures of the country came to look at this find, everyone fell ill. But there is an explanation. I have repeatedly said that people get sick because of an infection that lives with mummies. Another sarcophagus was found by Turkish archaeologists, but instead of celebrating their discovery, they ended up in court as the government classified their discovery. There was a being inside that could have been a human, but it wasn't. It was a creature with huge eye sockets, no nose or ears, and incredibly thin fingers. And wings, guys, real wings. It seems that before us is representative of an alien civilization. The sarcophagus appeared to be made of glass, but in fact it was incredibly strong and consisted of an unknown material containing at least 15 different minerals. Incredible, isn't it? How real do you think this story is? Are there really mummified monks who are able to wake up once every 100 years? After all, we know of cases when the ancient monks, with the help of meditation, plunged into a deadly sleep, though we still have no recorded cases of awakening. Write your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Ancient sword in perfect condition. Archaeologists have found a real bronze sword in the waters of the Danube River, a sword that is already about 3,000 years old. At first, scientists thought it was a fake, but after checking the sword, they were amazed. This is a real ancient sword, and best of all, it's in perfect condition. Let's imagine, 3,000 years ago, different tribes lived in Germany. People lived in wooden houses near the rivers, were engaged in agriculture, hunting, and waging wars was common. And in one of these wars, this sword was lost. The sword was found near the town of Nördlingen, in a grave where 3 people lay. It seems that it was a family, a man, a woman, and a little boy. They were buried with other bronze objects, but the sword turned out to be the most surprising among them. Scholars estimate that this sword was made at the end of the 14th century BC, and it was not a simple sword, but a skillfully crafted sword with an octagonal hilt and a wide blade. Do you know what swords were made of in the Bronze Age? That's right, bronze. And here's why it was cool. Firstly, bronze does not rust. Secondly, it is easy to mold. And thirdly, bronze swords were very durable. At least until blacksmiths started using iron. Therefore, iron eventually replaced bronze. Iron was stronger, iron ore was easier to find, and an iron sword could be made even sharper. And so, thanks to iron, swords became even stronger, sharper, and cheaper. But we were lucky that the sword was made of bronze, otherwise we would not have seen it today. Superhighway of the ancient Maya. And now we will go on an adventure straight into the jungles of Guatemala. Archaeologists have been working for the past 8 years to uncover the secrets of the ancient Maya civilization. Fasten your seatbelts, we have an exciting flight into the past ahead of us. Remember how you loved to hide in the park among the trees and bushes as a child? But what if someone hid an entire city? This is exactly what scientists have made, using a super cool technology called lidar. It allows you to see through the jungle, just like you can see through the water in a swimming pool. Archaeologists have found not just one city, they have discovered a network of 400 Mayan cities interconnected by roads. It's like a huge treasure map where all the islands are connected by bridges, and not just roads, but real superhighways. Researchers believe that these superhighways were not only huge, wider than even our widest freeways, but also illuminated by moonlight. Interesting, right? This all thanks to the layer of white plaster that covered the roads. Can you imagine how cool it was to run along this road under the moonlight? Richard Hansen, lead archaeologist on the study, calls the network the world's first superhighway system. He says that these roads were like a web, connecting all the cities into one big system. While our Mayan friends did not use wheels or paths to get around, it is assumed that they traveled these roads on foot. Can you imagine how they moved from city to city, passing many kilometers along these superhighways? Mausoleum of the Ancient Roman Era. Let's go on a virtual journey to the center of London, where archaeologists have stumbled upon a unique find, a mausoleum from the era of the Roman Empire and in excellent condition. Imagine, in the heart of modern London, in the Southwark area, scientists have discovered a Roman mausoleum, the walls and floors of which are surprisingly well preserved. During the time when Britain was a Roman colony, this place most likely served as a last refuge for the wealthy inhabitants of Londinium. And after the restoration, we will be able to see it as a permanent exhibition. All this action took place under the strict guidance of specialists from the London Archaeological Museum. And the most interesting thing is that this is not just another mausoleum. This is the best preserved Roman mausoleum with a unique mosaic floor and traces of steps. The most incredible thing is that under the first mosaic floor, archaeologists discovered another one with a similar pattern. Perhaps at one time they decided to renovate or even rebuild the mausoleum. It seems to have been quite an imposing building, perhaps even two-story. Such that just in the tomb, strange, but they did not find sarcophagi, but more than 100 coins, fragments of ceramics, tiles, and metal were found. And also, in the same area in 2022, a giant mosaic was discovered, the largest in the last 50 years. Now researchers are using 3D modeling to determine the exact age of the mausoleum and perhaps even find out who was its owner. Bronze Age rock paintings. While hiking with his family in the vicinity of Moss, south of Oslo, Tormod Fjeld noticed a pattern on a rock that any passerby might miss. Using an app on his phone, he was able to distinguish between natural and artificial colors on the rock and saw an image of a boat with rowers, as well as animals and people. Experts confirmed the uniqueness of his discovery. This is most likely the first Bronze Age painting in this region of Norway. Tormod is always looking for such pictures. His first find is a petroglyph discovered in 2016 while walking his dog. He didn't know what those strange signs meant, but he wanted to know more. So Tormod began a joint search with archaeologists Magnus Tengen and Lars Ole Kleivstad, an architect and artist who is also passionate about petroglyphs. Together they spent many nights in all weathers examining these ancient signs. This kind of research requires passion and dedication. Like magicians, they prefer to explore at dusk or dawn when the tilted light brings ancient ruins to life. There is even a theory that ancient people used fire to create the effect of movement in petroglyphs. How did the first paper money appear? Long ago, during the time of the ancient Phoenicians, trading was a difficult business. To facilitate the exchange of goods, they came up with the idea of using coins as a universal medium of exchange. However, the coins were heavy and the slaves carried them using special handles. Then the Chinese came on the scene with a revolutionary idea. Around the 1st century BC, they came up with leather banknotes. They were made from the skin of white deer and marked with special marks. They could be used for purchases anywhere in the empire, and refusing to accept them cost a life. These leather money became the progenitors of paper bills that we know today. Around the 800s, the Chinese decided to try to create paper money using the woodcut technique, which is a method of engraving wood and imprinting on paper. But this flying money, as they were nicknamed, was not immediately taken seriously. After all, a paper bill could easily fly away with a breath of wind. Initially, these paper money were used as guarantees for debt obligations, but over time, they have become a full-fledged means of payment. Paper money made trading much more convenient. Merchants no longer had to carry heavy coins, and the metal could be used for other important uses. This new flying money was more like checks and was used for large transactions. In just a few decades, paper money has evolved from a credit certificate to a full-fledged means of payment, becoming what we call paper money today. Europe at that time was still immersed in the Middle Ages, but the idea of the Chinese was so breakthrough that it spread all over the world. And so, in 1601, Sweden became the first European country to print and put into circulation paper money. Thus began the history of paper money, which we know and use today. Crocodile Stone. And now we will go to the amazing mountains of Laos, where the ancient ruins of Wat Pho Temple are hidden. Among this temple, archaeologists found one very strange thing: a huge boulder with a carving resembling a crocodile. But even more interesting is that this recess is the size of a man. Many people think that this stone was used as an altar for human sacrifices. If this is true, then such rituals could go back to the time of Chenla, the ancient empire that ruled these lands. According to legend, every year when the frangipani petals began to fall, King Chenla prayed to the spirits of the mountains and offered rice wine to two of the most beautiful girls. Then the girls were sacrificed sacrifice to the gods. Such sacrifices are described in the 6th century history of the city. All this time, a community far from the big cities has preserved this story, which indicates its possible authenticity. However, it is not known what role crocodile rock played in these rituals. This unique carving makes it even more mysterious. Nothing like this has been found in the ruins of Laos and Cambodia. And here is the question: if the crocodile rock was not used for sacrifices, then what was it for? What were the rewards for ancient Roman soldiers? Let's remember the Roman Empire and fast forward to Vindolanda, an ancient Roman camp in the north of England. There, amateur archaeologists made an amazing discovery: a silver medallion or phallera depicting the head of the Gorgon Medusa. Vindolanda is not just a fort. This is a real open-air museum which attracts archaeologists from all over the world. Hundreds of people work here as volunteers every year. The excavations of Vindolanda reveal to us a picture of everyday life on the outskirts of the Roman Empire. The fort, which stands 1.5 kilometers from Hadrian's Wall, was built around 85 AD to protect against the Celtic tribes. The garrison included soldiers from territories conquered by Rome, including what today we call Belgium, Germany, and France. The fort was rebuilt many times. In its place, 9 layers of different fortresses were found, one on top of the other. Now the ruins of the 3rd century are visible: the fortress walls, the headquarters building, the commander's house, granaries, barracks, and even an outer settlement with shops and a bathhouse. It was in one of the barracks that a unique medallion with the image of the Gorgon Medusa was found. Despite its impressive age of 1,900 years, it is still perfectly preserved. 6,000-year-old human DNA. In the city of Wuxi, China, archaeologists have discovered the DNA of a person who lived here 6,000 years ago. These molecules were found in 2 tombs associated with the Middle Neolithic Majaban culture. Until now, information about the inhabitants of this region has been limited. However, thanks to new finds, it became known that the first people settled in Wuxi at least 6,000 years ago. During the research, which began in April 2022, more than 100 traces of ancient human activity were found, including 2 tombs with DNA. Aliens on the walls. Archaeologists working at the Swaga Swaga Nature Reserve in Tanzania made the astonishing discovery of 52 previously unknown rock shelters in 2018, many of which contained ancient rock art. However, most of the drawings were lost due to weathering. Of those that have survived, the most interesting were the anthropomorphic figures with unusually large heads. Particularly noteworthy was the shelter called Amakahi 4. On its walls, scientists discovered a well-preserved frieze depicting anthropomorphic creatures with buffalo hats. These drawings may be key to understanding similar figures found elsewhere. Dating the Amakahi Panel 4 has proven challenging, but it is believed to be at least several hundred years old. The walls of the shelter are painted red with the exception of 5 white figures. Based on the weathering of the pigment and the lack of depictions of domestic animals, scientists suggest that the drawings may be very ancient and date back to the hunter-gatherer period. Interestingly, similar figures with large hats were found in other rock shelters in the Kondor region. In all images, the figures have the same placement and direction of their hands, although with some differences in detail. This suggests that such figures played an important role in the culture of the ancient inhabitants of this region. Scientists are turning to the Sandaway culture of the region for answers to these mysterious paintings. Some rock paintings are still used by local people for rituals, which can help in revealing their meanings. Mesopotamian clay bowls. The clay bowls, more than 5,500 years old, are still shrouded in mystery. These artifacts, ranging in size from golf balls to baseballs, were found at Chogamish in western Iran in the late 1960s. In total, about 150 such bowls were discovered, which only increases intrigue around their purpose. For a long time, the prevailing theory was that the bowls were used as a kind of means of recording economic transactions. This assumption was based on the discovery of a 3,300-year-old bowl containing 49 stones and cuneiform writing describing a deal with a shepherd. However, the exact function of these bowls remain a mystery. In 2013, using computed tomography and 3D modeling, scientists took a look inside the bowls. It turned out that they contained tokens of various shapes, which could serve as numerical signs for recording goods. Researchers are trying to understand the system of which these tokens are grouped within the bowls. One of the surprising finds indicates that some tokens were wrapped in cloth and placed in a bowl, then coated with a liquid similar to bitumen. Some bowls had tiny channels, perhaps for thin threads, that could serve as external markers and provide information about the contents. Similar objects have been found in various cultures of the time, including Scotland, where more than 400 carved stone bowls from the Neolithic period have been discovered. What else do you think these mysterious artifacts could symbolize? Leave your guesses in the comments. New giant pyramid. A giant underground pyramid Gunung has been discovered in Indonesia, surpassing Stonehenge and the pyramids of Giza in antiquity. This place, shrouded in mystery and considered sacred by local residents of the island of West Java, is known as the Pandan Berendak, the Step Pyramid. Archaeological work has only just begun, but has already shown that Gunung may be the oldest pyramidal structure in the world, created on top of an extinct volcano before the advent of agriculture. New research suggests there may be chambers full of the unknown inside the hill. The name Mountain of Enlightenment emphasizes that an ancient civilization could have turned a volcanic hill into the base of a pyramid many millennia ago. Radiocarbon dating shows that construction began around the last ice age, making it older than 16 years ago and possibly even 27 years ago, putting it on par with Göbekli Tepe in age. Between 2011 and 2005, a team conducted a comprehensive analysis using drilling and seismic surveys. They found that Gunung was built in several stages. While exploring the interior of the hill, scientists discovered signs of hidden chambers, some of which reach 15 meters in length and 10 meters in height, which confirms the uniqueness and mystery of this ancient structure. Gilded statue of Hercules. Here's a story that any archaeologist will tell with delight. Imagine that you're digging a hole in the heart of Rome and then boom! A huge bronze finger sticks right out of the ground. It happened in 1864 in the Campo de Fiore Square, when workers were working to strengthen the foundations of the ancient palace of Palazzo Pio Rigetti. Having come across a huge wall and columns, they continued to dig deeper and deeper, and here a bronze finger was in the ground. So big you might think it's from a monster, but who could have expected that an entire statue was hidden underground? Archaeologists, of course, continued to excavate, and soon they found the rest of the statue, a huge bronze Hercules and a bronze lion, which Hercules defeated. But the statue was damaged, its feet were missing, and there was a hole in the back of its head. Why was it there? In Rome, there were many beliefs, and one of them said, if lightning struck something, then it must be quickly buried because the gods do not like it. Apparently, lightning struck the statue and drilled through the back of its head. Therefore, the inhabitants of Rome decided to bury it. And what about the walls and columns that the workers discovered? It turned out to be an ancient theater built by Pompey. It cunningly bypassed the ban on the construction of theaters in Rome, first building a temple and then attaching a theater to it. By the way, now there is a restaurant where you can feel like a real Roman. As a result, the statue of Hercules was restored and placed in the Vatican. So if you're going there, be sure to take the time to have a look. The oldest human footprints in Germany. Imagine a huge lake surrounded by sparse birches and pines and dense thickets of grass on the shore. This is Germany, only about 300,000 years ago. Giant elephants, rhinos, and other majestic creatures of that time came here to drink water. And on the shore of this lake, exactly where the city of Schöningen is now located, the Heidelberg people, our ancient ancestors, left their traces. Scientists accidentally found footprints imprinted on soft silt and then petrified. And this is simply amazing because these traces were left by an adult, a teenager, and even a child. Maybe it was a family outing or someone playing on the beach, we can only guess. Who were these Heidelberg people? They lived in Europe and Africa about 130,000 years ago and are considered our distant ancestors, the direct predecessors of the Neanderthals. They chose places to live near lakes or rivers where you could always find something tasty, fruits, berries, mushrooms, and much more. But people were not the only ones who left traces in Schoningen. They also found paw prints of large land animals of that time, extinct species of elephants, and even traces of a rhinoceros. By the way, such prints of rhinoceros were found in Europe for the first time. Fill in the dead with plaster. Archaeologists have used state-of-the-art technology to shed light on one of the strangest Roman burial traditions involving filling the body of the deceased with plaster. Gypsum was poured directly into the coffin, enveloping the entire body. It turned out something like a 3D model of the deceased. These Roman plaster burials are found throughout Europe and North Africa. About 45 such burials have been discovered in Roman Britain. Scientists scanned 16 plaster burials from the Yorkshire Museum in the UK. The scan revealed a plaster coffin containing the remains of 2 adults and an infant who died together. And what do these 3D models give us? They detailed the shape, size, and position of each of the deceased, as well as how they were dressed or wrapped. It turns out that 3D visualization is a huge help in studying ancient finds. So why did the Romans engage in such strange burial practices? Scientists suggest that this could be due to high social status. Regardless of the reasons, this unusual funerary practice has proved super useful for archaeologists. Plaster prints retain a ton of detail that is usually lost over time, including the clothes of the deceased. Ruins of ancient civilizations. Captain Robert Scott and his crew come face to face with an ancient civilization behind the ice wall of Antarctica. They found traces of antediluvian time and even filled them. Can you imagine what is it like to see the ruins of ancient city, pyramids, columns, and statues in the heart of Antarctica? This ancient civilization may even be older than the ones we learn about in school. Confirmation of this is a map of 1531 where Antarctica is shown without ice. Strange because according to our history, Antarctica was discovered only in 1820 by Russian explorers. Did you know that the North and South Poles have reversed 171 times in the last 76 million years? And the last time it happened was about 12,000 years ago. This explains why all the secrets of Antarctica today are hidden under a kilometer layer of ice. According to recent reports, under Antarctica, there was a huge network of passages and tunnels at a depth of 4 kilometers. Pendant with the mammoth, a mystery solved centuries later. In 1889, the American archaeologist Hilborn T. Cresson showed the world an unusual artifact, an ancient pendant carved from oak bark and decorated with an engraving of a mammoth. This jewelry was special because mammoths disappeared from North America more than 10,000 years ago. From the very beginning, there were doubts about its authenticity. Cresson stated that he found the pendant near the Delaware River 25 years ago, but couldn't explain why he was silent about this discovery for so long. He said that he did not understand the value of the pendant, which seemed strange to an archaeologist. Cresson was already known for his not-so-good deeds. He lost his job due to the theft of artifacts and selling them to collectors. As a result, the pendant was recognized as a fake, but no evidence of this was found, so it was forgotten for many years. However, in the 1970s, interest was renewed in the pendant, and it even graced the cover of Science magazine in May 1976. People began to believe in its authenticity again, and even suggested that the pendant could be up to 40,000 years old. The real truth about the artifact was established only in 1988, when radiocarbon analysis showed that the age of the pendant is only 1,100 years old, which determined its creation around 885 AD. Thus, the mystery of the mammoth pendant was solved centuries later, and this case became a reminder of the importance of a scientific approach and careful analysis in archaeology. On the other hand, although this pendant is not 10,000 years old, it can still be classified as an ancient artifact. Mummy Tashfenet. This is the oldest mummy in Africa. In Libya, at the archaeological site of Wan Mehajiak, archaeologists have discovered unique mummies. After a lot of research, scientists said that the mummies are 5,400–5,600 years old. Their uniqueness lies in the fact that their age is older than all previously found in neighboring Egypt. The discovery was made by Professor Fabrizio Mori in 1958. The mummy of a 3-year-old child was found in the fetal position. The embalmed body was carefully wrapped in leaves and covered with an antelope skin. Instead of internal organs, there were some herbs in the body. Scientists are still studying the mixture of herbs to understand how the body was able to survive for almost 6 years. After the discovery of this mummy, archaeologists are sure that the first mummies on the mainland did not appear in Egypt. The Egyptians used mummification techniques borrowed from other people. Mayan VIP tomb. Imagine you're an archaeologist and in Mexico, in the depth of the ancient city of Palenque, you discover a secret burial chamber of the Mayan civilization filled with unique and mysterious objects. Such an adventure happened to scientists from the National Institute of Anthropology and History in Mexico. Palenque was one of the most majestic and mysterious cities of the Maya. It was also called La Camha. This ancient city is located in the Mexican state of Chiapas. During restoration work in Palenque, archaeologists discovered a burial chamber. Inside was the skeleton of a man laid face up with his head turned to the north. This was typical for the burial of very important people in Palenque. But that is not all. Large ceramic bowls were found in the tomb, which the Maya used as offerings for the dead. They believed the deceased would eat from these bowls in the afterlife. And in the same tomb, they found a second burial, the skeleton of a woman. Next to her lay green figurines made of malachite. The Maya believed that this stone had powerful spiritual powers. Palenque, although it was not the largest Mayan city, but its architecture is simply amazing. Thanks to the hieroglyphic inscriptions found in the city, scholars have been able to trace the history of the Palenque dynasty from the 5th to the 8th centuries AD. So the ancient secrets continue to be revealed thanks to the hard work of archaeologists, and each new discovery is another page in the history of our world. Viking Age double burial. A unique find was made by archaeologists in 1981 near the village of Gadrup, near the city of Roskilde in Denmark. The researchers found not just an unusual, but a very strange burial by those standards. A woman and a man lay in the grave, but they were buried in completely different ways. The reconstructed burial is today considered the main attraction of the local museum in Roskilde. The photo shows how huge stones lie on the chest, left arm and legs of a woman, and next to it lies the heavy tip of a spear 40 centimeters long. It is not always possible to determine the sex from the bones 100%, but in our case, archaeologists are sure. The pelvis of the skeleton is small, but experts are sure that the woman gave birth more than once. It is also clear from the skeleton that the woman is not young. The spear is too large to actually be used in combat, so it was more symbolic. But with stones, the story is more interesting. It is believed that huge stones were placed on a woman out of fear of her. People thought that in this way, it would save them from the fact that a woman could wake up after death. There were interesting things with the man too. It can be seen that his neck was broken and his legs were tied, which means he was hanged. It's more like a criminal, but to put a criminal and a half-warrior woman in one grave, who would need it? There was an assumption that this was a servant of a woman before they did a DNA test of the buried. It turned out to be even more confusing. The woman and the man were relatives, mother and son. It turns out we have found the true cause of fear of this woman. They threw stones at her so that she could not get up from the grave and avenge the death of her son. And the heavy tip of the spear was most likely a witch's stick. You might think that this is complete nonsense, but there is an explanation and coincidence for this in an ancient saga written in the 13th century. The saga tells the story of the sorceress Katla and her son. Odd was a criminal, but no one could injure or kill him, neither with a knife nor with an axe, because he was protected by the witchcraft of his mother. She hid his son at home and turned him into a dog or a pig. But another sorceress appeared who was able to expose them. As a result, the son was hanged right in front of the mother, and the mother was stoned, but she managed to curse her killers. The coincidence is very interesting. Were archaeologists really able to find real evidence of the ancient saga? If myth and sagas can be real stories, what about the golden boy from Egypt? 260-day calendar. How many days are there in a year? Anyone on our planet knows, but for most people this number sounds like 365, and for the inhabitants of some part of Mesoamerica, it is the number 260. As well as 3,000 years ago, these people used calendars in which there are 260 days a year. And just the other day, researchers found the earliest evidence that ancient stone structures were used to mark the seasons. With the help of lidar and aerial photography, archaeologists have discovered hundreds of architectural complexes that have been aligned to synchronized observations of the sunrise and sunset of the sun, moon, and other celestial objects in accordance with this 260-day cycle. This calendar was most likely invented based on the cycles of corn growing and human reproduction. The earliest documented evidence of the use of this calendar was a glyph depicting the seven deer, one of the days of the calendar, as part of the 3rd century BC fresco in Guatemala. Unfortunately, these cultures did not leave written records of earlier periods, so it was difficult for scientists to prove that people used the 260-day cycle of the year until archaeologists found the stone remains of a giant calendar. Judging by the size of this structure, it was of great importance to the Olmecs, Maya, and other cultures of that time, at least during the period when corn cultivation became widespread in the region. Excavating in the impenetrable jungle is a very difficult task, so aerial photography with lidar has become a real miracle for archaeologists. Thanks to such opportunities, researchers can know in advance where to conduct their excavations. In addition to the stone calendar, experts have found many other buildings, pyramids, and temples, and soon in my next videos I will definitely talk about them. In the meantime, we will go to Israel, where according to archaeologists, they found the tomb of the midwife of Christ. Ancient hair. This terrible epidemic has a very long history. Various drugs have been popular for thousands of years, and in those days, millions of people around the world died from this poison. Archaeologists have found the oldest case of drug use in Europe on the island of Minorca, near Spain. This man's hair is over 3,000 years old. Scientists studying the cave of Esquerich discovered that our ancestors performed a strange ritual. The dead man's hair was cut off, dyed red, and placed in small boxes made of horn and wood. The researchers analyzed the hair using sophisticated methods and found alkaloids, scopolamine, and ephedrine, substances that cause hallucinations. It's no secret that researchers can detect drugs in human hair and nails even after months and years. Scientists think that ancient people used vision-inducing plants such as mandrake, henbane, and datura. In addition, they ate ephedra with ephedrine, a stimulant. Now we can say with certainty that psychostimulants were popular in Europe more than 3,000 years ago, and most likely created a big problem for humanity even then. 100,000 ancient coins. In Maebashi, Japan, archaeologists have discovered a unique find. Over 100,000 ancient coins, including Chinese Banlian coins dating back to 175 BC. These coins, found during the construction of the factory, cover the period from the 7th to the 13th centuries. They were tied into bundles of 100 pieces using sashi straw ropes. This site, close to the ruins of a Qin dynasty palace, was chosen to hide the treasure, probably because of the approaching war. A total of 1,060 sasha bundles were found, some of which contained up to 1,000 coins. Analysis of 334 coins from the hoard revealed 44 different types of currency, spanning the period from the Western Han Dynasty to the Southern Song Dynasty. The earliest Banlian coin has a diameter of 2.3 centimeters, a square hole in the center, and a thickness of 1 millimeter. The latest coin dates from 1265, indicating that the treasure was hidden during the Kamakura reign. Ancient invoice in Jerusalem. Imagine the ancient city of Jerusalem over 2,000 years ago. This is the time when the Roman Empire ruled the world. It was here, on the main street of Old Jerusalem, that scientists found an unusual stone. There were strange symbols and words on the stone. It turned out that this is an ancient invoice, a paper receipt of our time. The archaeologists were delighted. After all, this is the first such item from those distant times found right in Jerusalem. Why is it so important? Imagine what secrets this invoice can reveal. It could tell us about how people lived, what they bought, what their customs were. According to Professor Anna Evans, it is a simple object, but it reflects the daily life of the ancient inhabitants of Jerusalem. It is these little things that give us the opportunity to look into the past and see how our distant ancestors lived. This stone tablet was found in an old tunnel dugout in the 19th century. It was carved into a piece of limestone that was once part of an ancient funerary chest called an ossuary. Professor David Cohen, an expert on the history of ancient Jerusalem, says, "This find gives us valuable information about the commercial activities and economy of Jerusalem at that time. The names and numbers on the tablet indicate financial transactions, perhaps even modern forms of accounting and trade. Each new find in the city of David helps us to better understand the history of this holy place." The largest ship of the Middle Ages. Straight from Tallinn, the heart of the Estonian capital, comes the news that makes us rewrite the history of medieval sailings. Literally under the stone pavement of one of the central streets, a sunken ship was found. At first, archaeologists were sure that this was a cog, a small single-masted ship actively used by merchants of Hanseatic League in the 14th century. But what were the surprises there? It turned out that this ship is not just larger than an ordinary cog. This is a real giant, most likely descended from the Scandinavian shipyards, and its design is so unique that even experienced experts in maritime disasters cannot hide their surprise. Did you know that moss was commonly used to insulate the hull of ships in the Middle Ages? Well, on this ship, animal fur covered with resin was also added to the moss. This method was common in Scandinavia in contrast to the North German regions where typical cogs were built. And how do you like the fact that plank structures were found on the wreckage of the ship, which began to be widely used only a century after the estimated date of construction of this ship? There are more and more questions. The ship sank right in the center of the city where Latty Street now passes. Judging by the damage, its hull was facing the shore and was visible to all passers-by. At the time of discovery, the length of the ship was estimated at about 10 meters, but during further excavations, it increased to 20 meters. This makes it one of the largest medieval ships found in Europe. The highlight of this find was the things left on board the ship: fruits, fish, and even more than 20 pairs of leather shoes, which have been perfectly preserved over the centuries. But what surprised archaeologists the most? Rats. Intact rats buried under the tar that leaked from burst barrels. Faces on stone. A drought in the Brazilian region has caused water levels in the Amazon River to reach record lows, leading to the discovery of faces and other figures engraved on ancient stone that is more than 2,000 years old. These petroglyphs, including images of animals and other natural forms, were found on the banks of the Rio Negro at an archaeological site known as Ponta das Lajes, place of the slabs. Researchers estimate that the paintings are between 1,000 and 2,000 years old. The stones, in addition to images of faces and water, also have grooves indicating that the site was used to create stone tools. Archaeologists discovered 25 groups of engravings on one rock. The find indicates that this place was used for sharpening various tools. In addition, fragments of ceramics were found at this site. Although Ponta das Lajes is recognized as an archaeological site, the petroglyphs have not yet been studied. What other secrets do you think Amazon is hiding? Share your thoughts in the comments. 2000 seal impressions. Archaeologists have discovered in Doliha in Turkey an ancient archive with more than 2,000 seals for sealing documents. Doliha was an important city of the Roman and Byzantine eras in northern Syria and was famous for its religious diversity. The seals depict deities important to the city, including Jupiter Dolichanes. According to scientists, this discovery provides a key to understanding the religious life of the ancient inhabitants. The remains of the archive are a massive structure made of limestone blocks, indicating the presence of several floors. Carved snake head. Tenochtitlan, the ancient center of Mexico City, was once the heart of the Triple Alliance and had between 200,000 and 400,000 inhabitants. However, the arrival of the Spaniards led to mass death from smallpox. Now, centuries later, an amazing find has been discovered in the city center, an Aztec snake head measuring 1.8 by 1 meter. Due to the characteristics of the soil, many details of the artifact were preserved. The researchers were amazed to see that 80% of the carvings were still covered in bright pigments: ochre, red, blue, black, and white. This is a reflection of how Mexicans decorated their temples and religious images. To preserve rare pigments, scientists use a special chamber, the work in which will last until 2024. This artifact reminds us of the greatness of the ancient Aztecs and allows us to see a world full of bright colors and finest art. This discovery connects us to the culture and history of Tenochtitlan and adds new pieces to the mosaic of human history. The discovery of the Aztec snake shows how much remains to be learned about ancient civilizations. Production of prehistoric weapons. Archaeologists from the Israel Antiquities Authority have revealed amazing finds from Enishur and Anzipora, dating back to 5800–4500 BC. They discovered hundreds of sling stones that amazed researchers with their identical sizes. All of them were 52 millimeters long and about 32 millimeters wide and weighed 60 grams. Experts believe that this indicates large-scale weapons production in the southern Levant region. The stones had a biconical shape, ensuring accuracy and efficiency of throwing. This is the first time that so many stones have been discovered in one place, indicating joint preparation for conflict and a transition from individual to mass production of weapons during the Chalcolithic period. 1,000-year-old sandals. In Granada, southern Spain, archaeologists have made an amazing discovery: ancient sandals and baskets dating back to the Mesolithic era. The sandals are estimated to be 6,200 years old, while the basket is estimated to be an impressive 9,500 years old. The age of the baskets came as a surprise to archaeologists. It was previously believed that basket weaving was a Neolithic technology, but it is now clear that this skill was mastered by hunter-gatherers much earlier. 8 secret rooms in the pyramid. Experts from the Julius Maximilian University of Würzburg, working on the restoration of the Saqqara pyramid, discovered 8 previously unexplored rooms. This pyramid, built approximately 4,400 years ago, is the tomb of the Egyptian pharaoh Sahur of the 5th dynasty. Although the site was explored in the 19th and 20th centuries, ongoing work has led to new discoveries. The main task of the researchers was to strengthen the foundation of the pyramid to prevent its further destruction. Thanks to 3D laser scanning technology, detailed plans of the pyramid, including its interior, were drawn up. As a result of the research, a secret corridor was discovered leading to previously unknown rooms. The condition of these premises raises a number of questions, including regarding their original contents. After the discovery of new rooms, restoration work began. Scientists intend to continue studying the pyramid in search of additional discoveries. They believe future discoveries could revise our understanding of the history and architecture of the pyramids. Buddha statue in Egypt. As part of a joint American-Polish archaeological expedition, scientists made a startling discovery at Berenice, an ancient Roman-era Egyptian port city on the Red Sea. During the excavations, researchers found a marble statue of Buddha, almost a meter high. The Buddha is depicted holding his robe in one hand, while the other part of the statue is missing. The background of the statue is decorated with a mandola, symbolizing the enlightened mind with traced rays of light. In addition, there is a blooming lotus at the base. The dating of the artifact indicates the 1st–2nd centuries AD. This find provides evidence of commercial relations between Egypt and India in ancient times. Such connections may have begun even before the 4th century BC. Ship in Serbia. On the site of the ancient Roman camp of the Mynaceum, which was the capital of the ancient province of Moesia, Serbian archaeologists are examining the remains of a 13-meter river vessel. This historic camp is located 144 kilometers southeast of Belgrade, the capital of Serbia. This is not the first time that coal miners had found ancient traces of former life in this area. Unfortunately, the ship was not fully preserved and was damaged, but as archaeologists noted, the wood is in good condition. Experts have already moved the remains of the ship to an archaeological camp for further research. Now scientists are trying to determine to what period the found vessel belongs. According to experts, the ship can date back to both the Roman era and the last century. Archaeologists plan to apply for funding from the Serbian Ministry of Culture to continue their research. When the museum is built, visitors will be able to see all the ships and boats found on this section of the Danube. From a magical remedy to a serious illness. In ancient times, these stones were worth a fortune. It was believed that they saved from poisons. The Middle Ages were a very unusual time in our history. Palaces, dances, and poisons. The aristocracy even took poison in small doses to get used to it. That's where pebbles and bezoars came in handy, which according to those times, absorbed poison from drinks. They were usually turned into stylish accessories, rings and pendants, but here's a fun fact. One smart surgeon, Ambroise Paré, decided to test whether bezoars actually worked, and it turned out that no. Typically, bezoars form in animals, for example when a small piece of fur enters their stomach and begins to become overgrown with minerals like a pearl in an oyster. Now, of course, these stones are valuable only as museum exhibits, but they never cease to amaze even today. Vampires in Poland. The remains of a 17th century child have been found at an archaeological site in Poland with a lock on his leg. The researchers think that the locals were afraid that this child might come to life like a vampire. In the Middle Ages in Europe, many believed in vampires and used various methods to keep the dead in the grave. Recently, archaeologists including Dariusz Poliński of the Nicholas Copernicus University discovered an unusual burial near Dąbrowa-Czelmińska in Poland. It was a woman with a lock on her leg and a sickle around her neck. And here is a new discovery, a vampire. The child was only 5 or 7 years old when he passed away. He was buried face down as if his activities were feared even in death. In the Middle Ages, such burials were made so that the deceased bite the ground and did not threaten people. And nearby, they found a cluster of skeletons of other children and a fragment of a jaw with a green tint. Most likely, a copper object was placed in the mouth of the deceased, hence this color. 50 Roman tweezers. Did you know who was the main culprit in the fashion for smooth skin without hair? It turns out that the Romans are to blame for everything. Among the ruins of the city of Wroxeter in Shropshire, more than 50 tweezers were found. And this place was not just somehow inhabited, it was one of the largest settlements in Roman Britain. Imagine, this city was as huge as Pompeii. It turns out that the Romans were just obsessed with the idea of plucking body hair. And this fashion affected not only the eyebrows but the whole body, including the armpits. Yes, that's right guys, the Romans wanted to be clean and smooth. And this is just the beginning. They had a personal grooming kit that included tweezers, a skin scraper, an ear scoop, and a nail cleaner. For the sake of beauty, they were ready for anything. Interestingly, these tweezers were used not only to remove body hair but also to shave faces in order to look more civilized and follow the fashion in Rome. And of course, all this was done by slaves who often did all the dirty work. More than 400 of these amazing items, including tweezers, are on display at the museum in Shropshire, so any of you can get an idea of what lifestyle and personal care was like in Roman Britain. So do not think that hair removal is a modern fashion. It started back in ancient Rome. 3,000-year-old priest's tomb. Archaeologists from Japan and Peru recently discovered a 3,000-year-old priest's tomb in Cajamarca, Peru. It is older than the pyramids in Egypt. The ancient mound was located deep in the Andes, far from noisy cities. Inside is a tomb containing 2 stunning ceramic seals. One shows a human face, and the other shows a scary jaguar. And believe me, to get to this treasure, archaeologists had to go through 6 layers of earth and ash. This amazing priest was one of the first spiritual leaders in the Andes and, according to scholars, ran the temples. This team of scientists has been digging in the Andes for 18 years, and every time they discover something new and exciting. Mysterious objects that are 130,000 years old. Archaeological discoveries in the Raciborz region of Poland have shed light on the activities of Neanderthals more than 130,000 years ago. For 2 years, an international team of specialists, including from the universities of Wrocław and the University of Silesia, as well as the Czech Academy of Sciences, carried out research planning to study the geological structure of the area. Professor Andrzej Wisniewski noted that the discovery of the stone tools was an unexpected gift. Artifacts found 10 meters underground in sediments formed during the last ice age showed that Neanderthals visited the area and left traces of their presence here. Archaeologists have emphasized the uniqueness of some tools, which have double-sided asymmetrical cutting surfaces reminiscent of modern broad-bladed knives. These tools may have been used for specific tasks such as butchering, and analogues of such objects are rare at other ancient sites north of the Carpathians and the Alps. Pristine tomb. Just 30 kilometers from Cairo, archaeologists have found an ancient intact tomb which is already 4,400 years old. This amazing discovery was made in the famous Saqqara necropolis. The tomb was built for a high-ranking priest who served with the pharaoh of the 5th dynasty and his family. One can understand that his life was full. The walls depict people who make wine, play musical instruments, sail in boats, and hunt. The building of the tomb is amazing. Its interior is decorated with large painted statues and impressive inscriptions that reveal the names of the wife and mother of the priest. Archaeologists have already begun to explore the 5 burial shafts inside the tomb, and we have yet to learn much about ancient life in Egypt. Ancient paintings of UFOs. Recently, scientists often come across images of circles and triangles on the walls of ancient temples and caves. It may seem mundane, but the presence of flying objects in medieval religious paintings is surprising. I will show you 9 paintings that, according to ufologists, depict alien objects. The Annunciation was Saint Emilius, 1486. Painting by Carlo Crivelli. The ray of light from heaven in the picture is traditionally interpreted as a divine broadcast, but some ufologists see a UFO in this image. The Crucifixion of Christ, 1350. Painting from the Serbian monastery of Visoki Dekani. The picture shows 2 objects in the air that look similar to aircraft. The official version says that these are the moon and the sun, although in the Christian tradition they are not deified. The Ascension of Christ, 1710. The work of Arne de Gelder, stored in Cambridge. It depicts a disc-shaped object illuminating John the Baptist and Jesus Christ. Some believe that the artist may have conveyed hidden knowledge about UFOs. Madonna was Saint Giovannino, 15th century. Author Domenico Ghirlandaio. The painting shows a flying object above the Madonna's shoulder, which is pointed at by a man with a dog. Tapestry Triumph of Summer, 1538. Created in Bruges, kept in the Bavarian Museum in Germany. The tapestry depicts 3 disc-shaped objects which ufologists interpret as UFOs. The Miracle of Snow, 1428-1432. Work by Marcellino de Panicle. The painting depicts an event from 4th century Rome where disc-shaped objects are visible in the air. Israel Trusts in the Lord, 17th century. Painting from the Dominican monastery in Siasoara, Transylvania. It shows a giant disc-shaped object above a burning church. Glorification of the Sacrament of the Eucharist, 1600. Author Bonaventura Salimbani. The painting depicts Jesus Christ and God the Father with a globe, which some researchers interpret as a time-control panel. The Crucifixion of Christ, 17th century. Kept in the Svetoskovshely Temple in Amskata, Georgia. On the sides of the cross there are objects with human faces, which ufologists consider to be confirmation of the extraterrestrial origin of Jesus Christ. As you may have noticed, all these paintings were painted in completely different parts of the planet, but the objects are to some extent similar to each other. Solar Mini Watch. Near the castle in Marburg, Germany, students have discovered a real treasure, a pocket sundial made of wood and bronze during the Middle Ages. This is an amazing find that is of great interest among archaeologists. This matchbox-sized device may have belonged to monks from the Brotherhood of Common Life, a Catholic order that lived in the area until 1527. Today, the site is home to the University of Marburg, Germany's first Protestant university. Students of this university discovered this amazing watch during a summer study excavation. The head of the excavation, Professor Felix Teichner, called this find sensational. People in the past needed to combine knowledge of astronomy and mathematics with the skill of artisans to create such an amazing device. This academic year was especially important for Marburg as the city celebrated its 800th anniversary. Tomb of Cerberus. A remarkably well-preserved tomb was recently discovered in the Giuliano area of Campania near Naples during archaeological excavations ahead of the modernization of the city's water supply system. The entrance to the tomb was sealed with a tough slab. The ancient Roman tomb is approximately 2,000 years old. Inside the chamber, there are a huge number of amazing frescoes on the walls. The image of a three-headed dog Cerberus especially stands out, which is why the tomb was nicknamed Tomb of Cerberus. This mythical creature is known as the Hound of Hades. He guarded the entrance to the underworld and prevented the souls of the dead from leaving. The fresco shows the moment when Hercules, completing his 12 labors, kidnapped Cerberus. The walls also depict mythical scenes with ichthyosaurs, creatures whose upper body resembles a man and whose lower body resembles a horse with a fish tail. Luxurious artifacts in China. Get ready for a magical journey back in the time to the Shan Dynasty, which flourished in China from 1600 to 1046 BC. This state is not just invented but confirmed by finds and even records of that time, and it seems that we have just been lucky to open new tempting pages of this story. Recently, the National Cultural Heritage Administration of China presented fresh archaeological discoveries that literally turned our understanding of the Shan Dynasty upside down. And all thanks to excavations in the Shan province, where Zhegu is located, a place strewn with ancient treasures, the leader among all places associated with the Shans. Feel the grandeur of this place. Giant earthworks, tombs, furnaces, and ruins. All this is spread over 11 neighboring hills. Here is the true golden heart of the Shan Dynasty, and here are our main characters, 9 collections of graves of noble people, including 3 groups of large tombs that fit into the shape of the Chinese character Jia. It sort of removes all questions and secures the status of the main cemetery of the Shan Dynasty for Zhegu. But wait, there are even more amazing finds. Remains of chariots and skeletons of horses. This is incredibly important for the study of the origin of chariots in China and the customs of their burial. But that's not all. Numerous jade artifacts, bone tools, oracle bones, and even utensils. And most importantly, the discovery of the central settlement and large tombs confirms the highly developed bronze civilization in the north of Shaanxi during the late Shan Dynasty, which turned our ideas about that time upside down. All these discoveries help us better understand the structure of the states of that time, cultural exchanges, and interactions between different areas. The oldest painting. In Iceland, archaeologists have discovered a stone carved with a Viking ship. And the most amazing thing about this is that it may be the oldest image in the history of Iceland. It is worth saying that although carved ships are found in Scandinavian culture, such discovery in Iceland is the first of its kind. According to archaeologist Bjarni Einarsson, this could be the first illustration in the history of the country. Work on the store excavation site began in 2015. Archaeologists return here every summer to continue their work. At first, the researchers drew attention to the long house of the settlement era, but this only opened the doors for them to the rich history of this place. What about the fact that 92 beads and 29 silver objects were found in this longhouse, including coins from Rome and the Middle East? An even older longhouse was found here, which archaeologists estimate was built around 800 AD. This is 75 years before Iceland became permanently populated. No remains of domestic animals were found inside it, which suggests its special purpose. Bjarni Einarsson suggests that this could have been a seasonal hunting base from where the Vikings went in search of valuable resources, including walrus bone. Stone Phallus in Spain. Get ready for a fascinating story about how archaeologists in Spain discovered a secret item of warriors of the past which at first surprised researchers. I'm talking about a stone penis that turned out to be a grindstone. Archaeologists were at the excavations near the Mira Tower in the city of Rio de Vigo. This tower was demolished in 1476 during the Irmandina Rebellion, when the peasants rebelled against the Spanish aristocracy. But here's the interesting thing. They came across a stone 15 centimeters long, which, as I said, was in the shape of a penis. In general, such a phallic image is often found in prehistoric symbolism, but is rarely found in artifacts of the Middle Ages, so the researchers were surprised. And then, it turns out that this stone is not just a stone. It was a grindstone used to sharpen weapons before battles during the Irmandina uprising. After all, not only modern people love everything stylish and with humor. Our ancestors were also not without a sense of humor. The researchers note that the stone reflects a symbolic connection between violence, weapons, and masculinity. Ancient artifact weighing 3 tons. A farmer from the Spanish town of Bana, uprooting an olive tree, stumbled upon a huge stone object. The photo posted by the local city hall shows that it looks like a large round stone with 3 grooves on the sides. It turned out to be an ancient Roman millstone, a special device for squeezing olives and extracting olive oil. This device is called a trapetum. It was invented back in Greece and then used throughout the Roman Empire. The trapetum works like this. The workers crush the olives with the help of the second part, which fit perfectly into the round recess, and rotate it with the help of a long stick. Stone mill, with a height of about 90 centimeters and a diameter of 1.2 meters, weighs as much as 3 tons. Archaeologist Jose Antonio Morena estimated the age of the millstone at 2,000 years, and he suggested that this monumental artifact proves that olives were grown in Bana back in the days of ancient Rome. Today, Bana is also known for its olive oil. Olive groves surround the entire city, and local history is reflected in the Museum of Olive Groves and Oil. So this stone millstone will soon move to the Historical Museum of the city. Fish scale armor. Today we have an exciting journey to China, where 2,500 years ago, a brave warrior was buried in amazing armor. Imagine, archaeologists are excavating in the depth of the Chinese Taklamakan Desert. They stumble upon a grave inside which lies a warrior in armor made up of over 5,000 overlapping leather scales. This costume would be so comfortable and practical that a warrior could put it on himself like an apron before dinner, only instead of dinner, there was a fight. This armor is unusual for its time and place. Researchers think that it was brought from the Middle East, where this style of armor originated. The warrior who wore this armor was a man about 30 years old. Found next to him were fragments of pots, parts of horse's bridle made of horn and wood, and a sheep's skull. Such scaly armor protected better from blows and injections than chain mail and was cheaper to manufacture, but it was less flexible and did not cover as much of the body as chain mail. Such armor was worn by warriors of many cultures, and they even decorated their horses with it. The materials for the scales are varied, from bronze and iron to pangolin scales and even paper. It is very difficult to find such old armor as this one, because not many of them have survived to this day. Only the armor from the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun and the armor of the Skatties are comparable in the time to this find. Scientists from the University of Zurich, led by Patrick Wertmann, recounted, and it turned out that there was 5,444 small and 140 large scales in the armor, all made from cow skin. This kind of armor was unusual for China at the time. This style was common among Persians and Skatties, and even some Greeks wore this armor, although they preferred other styles. The owner of the armor could be either an ordinary infantryman or a rider, but the presence of a bridle for a horse suggests that most likely he was a rider. He could be a local who bought armor in the West, or a foreign soldier who came to fight in China in Assyrian equipment. We can only guess, but one thing is for sure, this story is amazing. Write in the comments, what do you think? Was it an ancient Chinese or a traveler from distant lands? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Unique wagon in Russia. Imagine a car made by hand from wood. Instead of wheels, massive wooden discs. Instead of a body, a lattice of intertwined twigs. It is curious, but such a wagon was found by archaeologists in the Rostov region. It was buried in the grave of a 50-year-old man who lived in the 23rd century BC. You'll probably ask, how could such an ancient wagon survive? Well, we're just lucky here. The coolest part of the wagon, the frame, that is, the running gear, has been preserved quite well. And you know what's interesting? The masters of those times very carefully selected wood for every detail. For example, the frame was made from maple and the wheels were made from oak. Super deep research even showed that all the trees were native. This means that the wagon was made right there. Our ancestors cut down trees in the forest that was nearby and used them to create their vehicles. The coolest thing about this story is that the ancient inhabitants of these places knew how to work with wood, weave from twigs, and all this with the help of simple bronze tools. So guys, the ancient nomads were not quite as savages as we could imagine. They skillfully used all available resources and created completely unique things. Egypt rewrites history. Archaeologists in Egypt have stumbled upon something absolutely amazing. In Hierakonpolis, an ancient city on the banks of the Nile, which was the cultural center of Egypt before the pyramids, a cemetery was discovered, but not an ordinary one. Dr. Renee Friedman and her team waited for the usual excavation, but what they found made them gasp in surprise. In the tombs, along with human remains, lay unexpected guests: baboons, wild cats, and even hippos. These animals are not usually found in Egypt. The most amazing thing is that all these animals were well groomed. They received treatment, food, and even lived in captivity for a long time. According to Friedman, it could be the world's first zoo exhibit. These animals were symbols of power and might, demonstrations of wealth and control over wildlife. This zoo is one of the most amazing discoveries in Egypt. Imagine how these ancient Egyptians took care of their wild pets, using them in religious rituals and demonstrating their power. 2-meter statue of a man with a penis. In the southeast of Turkey, in the area of two ancient monumental complexes of the pre-ceramic Neolithic era, Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe, archaeologists have made amazing finds. A statue of a wild boar was discovered at Göbekli Tepe, painted in 3 colors: red, white, and black. This monumental image is installed on a pedestal decorated with signs: the letter H, a crescent symbol, images of 2 snakes, and 3 faces or masks. In the Karahan Tepe, researchers discovered a statue more than 2 meters high depicting a man in an atypical pose, as well as a sculpture similar to a vulture. These discoveries were presented by the Turkish Ministry of Culture and Tourism. Statues and other artifacts were also discovered there, including a structure with pillars shaped like phalluses and a stone head of a man. This complex, according to some assumptions, may be even more ancient than Göbekli Tepe. Ancient bakery in Armenia. I will tell you about an amazing discovery which is like from a fairy tale. Imagine an old bakery, a place where they bake delicious rolls and bread. Now imagine that this bakery is not on the corner of your street, but in Armenia. And it is not 10, not 50, or even 100 years old. It is 3,000 years old. Do you believe that bags of flour that were hidden in the ground are still preserved in it? Archaeologists have found this bakery in Matsamor, Armenia, in the remains of a huge building that once housed ovens that unfortunately burned down in a fire. But the most amazing thing is that there were still bags of flour. They looked like ash stains, but the scientists tested them and now they are sure that this is flour. At first, the building was a public place, but then ovens were placed there and it became a bakery where people baked bread from wheat flour. Later, there was a fire and the building collapsed. Only the stone bases of the columns and charred fragments of wooden beams and roof sheathing remained. It is interesting that the flour in those days was used for divinatory purposes. Perhaps this bakery had some special meaning for the people of that time. This is still a mystery, but we hope that scientists will be able to solve it too. So guys, the next time you eat freshly baked bread, remember that bakeries were an important part of the life of our ancestors already 3,000 years ago. UFO sighting. In 1965, at the Argentine Naval Base in Antarctica, in the middle of the night, almost 20 people looked up at the sky in surprise. At an altitude of 15 to 20 kilometers, they saw a UFO. This mysterious object was a glowing kaleidoscope of greens, reds, yellows, oranges, and whites. The huge ship, more than 85 meters long, seemed heavy and soared confidently in the sky. There were many witnesses to this event, since it all lasted a long time. Even earlier, in 1946, the American high jump expedition set off to the icy shores. There is a legend that flying saucers met them on the way, and they say that about 400 sailors warriors and soldiers died in battles with them. The entire expedition ended after 3 months, and all materials became strictly secret. Richard Byrd, the head of the expedition, told about this, ended up in a psychiatric hospital. A cocktail of hallucinogens and human blood. Analysis of an ancient vessel dating back to around the 2nd century BC revealed traces of an unusual cocktail consisting of various hallucinogenic plants, alcohol, honey, and human body fluids. Scientists believe that this strong drink was used in religious rites dedicated to the deity Bes, a figure resembling a combination of a dwarf and a cat who was credited with protective properties in ancient Egypt. The peculiarity of the vessel lies in its design. It is made in the shape of Bes's head. Scientists suggest that due to the protective significance of the figure of Bes, a drink from such a vessel could be considered as healing. Tests of organic matter in the container at the Tampa Museum of Art revealed the presence of the plant Paganum hamala and the water lily Nymphaea caerulea. In addition, the drink contained alcohol made from fermented fruits, honey, and possibly royal jelly from bees. The presence of human proteins has also been noted, which may indicate the addition of breast milk, mucus fluids, or human blood. Carvings of incredible beauty. Meet John Matthews, an ordinary guy who loves to look for old treasures in the fields of Wales. One day, when he was rummaging through the fields as usual, John stumbled upon something unusual. What he found was older than anything he had ever seen. We are talking about the treasures of the Roman time and the Iron Age. Experts say they may point to a hitherto unknown Roman settlement right there in the field. At first, John did not even understand what he had discovered, but he knew that it was something important. Calling a local archaeologist, John helped meticulously dig up a jar and vessel fixture brought there by the Celts and sent them off for study. A few weeks later, our lucky hunter joined the team of archaeologists for deeper excavations, and you know what they found? Archaeologists have found a bowl decorated with the bull's face as well as other amazing items. John, who had been looking for treasure for 10 years, was amazed by the beauty of the artifacts found. The treasures that John had discovered confirm one important fact: we never know exactly what might be hidden underground. Perhaps there, right under our feet, amazing treasures are waiting in the wings that can reveal to us the secrets of the past. And all we need to find them is a keen eye, a bit of luck, and of course a sense of adventure like our hero John. Mummified penguins. Chinese researchers have discovered a graveyard of mummified penguins in Antarctica, and many of them were just chicks. At first, scientists thought that the penguins did not survive 2 periods of extreme rainfall, but penguins live in Antarctica and are used to cold and snow, so something doesn't quite fit here. Now, scientists are suggesting that climate change is to blame for these massive penguin deaths. In their opinion, the humidification of the climate caused by global warming could have led to this tragedy. The penguins, as it turned out, were not ready for such conditions and immediately died. This happened twice, about 750 and 200 years ago. Scientists figured this out using radiocarbon dating, and it seems that the penguins did not die immediately, but gradually. Ancient trident in Turkey. In northwestern Turkey, near the historical city of Assos, archaeologists discovered an amazing artifact, a trident dating back to the 3rd-4th century AD. Professor Nurettin Arslan, who leads the research team, considers this trident to be evidence of ancient fishing traditions. Such iron objects are usually subject to corrosion and destruction, but this artifact is surprisingly well preserved. This speaks of the skill of its creators and the peculiarities of the conditions in which it was located for centuries. The trident was found near the Nymphaean, an ancient and magnificent fountain decorated with reliefs and statues. Based on the location of the find, it can be assumed that the trident could have belonged to a fisherman from Assos who used it to catch large fish. Ancient fishermen probably lit the night sea with torches to attract fish and then caught with tridents like these. This fishing method, was often depicted in ancient reliefs and frescoes. In addition, traces of ancient iron smelting workshops were previously found in Assos. This gives reason to believe that the trident was made here. The city of Assos has a rich history that dates back to the 7th century BC. It was founded by colonists from the island of Lesbos and became an important cultural and commercial center in ancient times. Golden ring with the inscription Lady of the Earth. The inscription Lady of the Earth with the image of the god of fun Bas was found on gold rings. Such a find was made by archaeologists from the Australian University in the ancient Egyptian burial of the city of Akhenaten. The age of the burial is approximately 3,300 years. Engraved on one of the rings, Bas was the god of fun and the protector of women in labor. He is depicted on the ring as a dwarf. In addition to the rings, a necklace of gold petals was found. On one of the rings was the inscription Lady of the Earth. Archaeologists are not yet in a hurry to name the possible name of the owner of this ring. In the coming month, they plan to collect all the finds together and study them in detail. Akhenaten was built by Pharaoh Akhenaten, who was trying to change the polytheistic religion of Egypt. He intended to make Aten, the god of the solar disk, the main god. He moved the capital of Egypt from Thebes to Akhenaten, but soon after the death of Akhenaten, the new city was abandoned and religious reforms were cancelled by his son Tutankhamun. All artifacts found in Akhenaten and now Amarna are of great value among archaeologists. In the last video, I talked about how the Egyptian authorities are trying to hide the history of the ancient world and sell artifacts to wealthy collectors. Ritual mask in Japan. Archaeologists have discovered a unique wooden mask from the 3rd century in the ruins of Nishiwata, Osaka Prefecture, Japan. Researchers believe that the mask was used in ceremonial rituals during agricultural festivals around 1,800 years ago during the Yayoi era. This find is one of 3 wooden masks found from this period. The mask, carved from cedar, measures 30 centimeters high and 18 centimeters wide, with holes for the eyes and mouth and holes in the sides for ties. It was found at a depth of 3 meters, next to a wooden bucket for water and a burn tool that looked like a mattock. These items may have been used in agricultural festivals. During the Yayoi era, the Japanese transitioned to a sedentary agricultural society and used farming techniques brought over from Korea. The mask, according to Kaworu Terasawa, director of the Makimukugaku Research Center, may have been purely a festive ritual attribute as it's too heavy to wear. Terasawa added that the mask may have been a head spirit representing the power of Okimi, the title of ruler of the Yamato Kingdom. Realistic drawings of birds in ancient Egypt. When we evaluate the art of ancient civilizations, we are most often very biased. We admire the drawings of those times because we take into account that art was not so developed at that time. The conditions for drawing were completely different, and the masters did not graduate from art universities. If you objectively evaluate ancient drawings and modern ones, then modern ones look much more realistic and beautiful. But in our case, drawings from ancient Egypt surprised scientists. Archaeologists have studied the drawing of an ancient artist who depicted birds flying and sitting in a green swamp on the fresco. The image is so detailed that modern experts have been able to identify the bird species that inspired the artist 3,300 years ago. It was this picture that archaeologists discovered more than 100 years ago, and it has long been studied, documented, and attracts tourists from all over the world. However, only now scientists have decided to study the image of birds in more detail. Rock pigeons, lesser piebald kingfisher, several rudies, common shrike, Lanius calurea, and white wagtail, Motacilla alba, are present in the picture. Today, the room in which the drawing was found is called the Green Room. Most likely it was intended for the royal family so that they could relax there. In ancient times, most likely in addition to images of birds and flowers, the room was decorated with live plants and live music played there. When the frescoes were first discovered, they were very fragile, and it is good that the experts managed to create copies of them in the form of a drawing. At the moment, they are completely destroyed. The rock dove and the pied kingfisher can still be found in Egypt all year round, but the white wagtail and the common shrike are migratory birds. Ancient artists marked the shrike and wagtail with triangular markings on the tail, which birds do not have in real life. The researchers speculated that the artists may have painted these marks to indicate that both bird species only visited Egypt seasonally. Ancient bridge in England. In England, there is an amazing wooden bridge from the Neolithic period. It is almost 6,000 years old. It's a trail called the Sweet Track that cuts through swampy terrain in the Somerset levels. It is named after Ray Sweet, who discovered it in 1970. The dating accuracy was determined by the Denver chronology method. Sweet Track was created as a shortcut through the swamp. It was actively used for 10 years, but then it was abandoned, possibly due to rising water levels. Items found along the trail include stone axes, arrows, the remains of a dish, parts of bows, bone hooks, and a fragment of a spoon. The road is about 1.8 kilometers long and connected two Neolithic settlements on opposite sides of the swamp. Today, the Sweet Track is considered to be the oldest known road in England. Surprisingly, the manufacturing technology of such wooden rides has not changed much over the past millennia. This unique find allows you to learn more about the life of people in the Neolithic era and their methods of transportation. Metal Man. Back in 1719, in the usual mining town of Falun in Sweden, everything went on as usual, until the miners who came on shift stumbled upon a strange find. It was a human body. The young man looked as if he had just died. In general, corpses are a common part of life. They do not surprise anyone. But this dead man seemed to be both flesh and metal. It was as if every millimeter of his body had been treated with something and applied the thinnest layer of metal. This was beyond the power of even a skilled craftsman, because every single hair in his body was covered with metal. The management of the mine did not know what to do with the unusual find. The corpse was exhibited in a local museum, whose visitors took the unusual exhibit as a miracle, believing that the man was metal during his lifetime, almost like a Tin Woodman or Terminator. One day, the grandchildren brought an elderly lady to the museum. She stood in front of the exhibit for a while, clutching her chest, because she recognized her fiancé Mats Israelsson in the find. It's been about 40 years since they last met. The guy was in a hurry to go on a date with the bride, but he never showed up at her place. They searched for Mats for some time. Gradually, the parents calmed down and reconciled, friends forgot about him. The girl married another guy, probably on the way he met criminals who killed him and threw the corpse into the mine. The deceased should have been buried, but the local authorities realized that they could make money on it. There were a huge number of people wishing to visit the museum, and tourists came from neighboring countries. As they say, money has no smell, but the exhibit kinda does. Under the action of air, the metal layer began to thin and evaporate, and the organic matter started simply decomposing. In 1749, the body was buried, but after 10 years, they dug it up again and returned it to its original place. Only in the 30s was he finally buried forever, leaving a wax copy in the museum. But it turns out that the victim of an accidental murder is not the only such case. There were other finds which were a combination of organic matter and metal. In science, this phenomenon is known as pseudomorphism. This is such an effect when one minerals replace others with the preservation of external forms. It is problematic to reproduce it in the laboratory. It is too expensive, time-consuming, and pointless. The case with Mats went down in history precisely because of the scale of the process that engulfed the whole human body and not the remains of a small animal, insect, or shell. Mystery of the Etruscan Tomb. A new discovery awaits us in Italy. In its central part in the city of Volci, scientists discovered a unique Etruscan tomb of the 6th century BC, which remained untouched for a long time. Many ceramic vessels and a dish with a brazier were found in this tomb. During the excavation, scientists found 2 heavy stone slabs that covered the tomb. Behind them was a room carved into the rock where they found about 30 ceramic vessels in excellent condition. Also found in the tomb was a bronze brazier with coals and skewers on which pieces of meat remained. It is likely that a woman was buried here, as no weapons were found, but a spindle was found. The remains of the woman were burned and placed in a special pot, which the Etruscans used to store the ashes. The city of Volci was a thriving center of trade and crafts until it was destroyed by Rome in 280 BC. The city fell into decay and then was abandoned. Many tombs were plundered by marauders in search of precious items. Therefore, finding an untouched tomb is a real rarity. Treasure of spices on a sunken ship. Despite the terrible tragedies and terrible events of the past, archaeologists can now study the ancient world. Off the coast of Sweden, archaeologists have found the ship Krebskänden, which sank here in 1495. The Danish king Johan planned to make a deal with the Swedish ruler St. Sture the Elder that would give him complete control over Sweden, as he had previously done with Norway, creating a unified Scandinavian kingdom. However, after landing, the ship caught fire and sank, which was a great loss. It was filled with goods worthy of a rich and powerful ruler. For the first time, the wreckage of the ship was discovered in the 1960s, but then archaeologists were not able to study in detail all the artifacts found deep underwater. The first serious research began in 2019, and the most valuable find were containers with well-preserved plant material containing about 3,000 samples. Scientists were able to identify medieval spices among them: nutmeg, cloves, mustard, dill, saffron, ginger, peppercorns, and almonds. In that era, spices from Southeast Asia were extremely expensive in Europe since the Ottoman Empire blocked the way to them. Also on board were less exotic foods such as dried blackberries, raspberries, grapes, and flax. In addition to them, henbane was found, which in the past was used for medicinal purposes, and now it is one of the most poisonous plants in nature. The plant samples were in excellent condition due to the unique conditions at the location where the ship was found, a cold and low salinity part of the Baltic Sea. From precious spices, I will move on to a treasure in a more familiar sense for us: the ancient Egyptian scam. Archaeologists have found in Egypt one interesting document about a marriage scam. This papyrus is over 2,000 years old. Just imagine, we can now find out what kind of scams men were capable of in relation to their lovers in ancient Egypt. The manuscript is a complaint of the deceived bride Philomena to King Ptolemy with a request to punish Numenius, who promised to marry. As stated in the text, instead of a wedding, a man simply appropriated the dower of his former lover. As you can see, the history of marriage scams has very long roots. Even then, people used legal tricks and engaged in fraud. So far, we know only about one such case, which has been documented, and how many of them happened in those years, we can only guess. The document was found in Deir el-Banat necropolis in the Fayoum oasis. For almost 1,000 years, people were buried here from the 4th century BC to the time of Byzantine Egypt. The manuscript was buried as a material for ritual decorations. The thing is that not everyone could afford to put precious stones and metals in burial places. Therefore, the ancient Egyptians resorted to trickery. They made necklaces from pressed pieces of papyrus, which then they used as an offering to the afterlife. Papyrus was taken most often scribbled. The next find will also be associated with a mass grave. Ancient tumor with teeth. During archaeological excavations in Amarna, Egypt, scientists made an amazing discovery. In one of the tombs, dating back around 1340 BC, they found the skeleton of a young woman aged 18-20, wrapped in a material made from plant fibers. Although tomb number 3051 was located in a cemetery for common people, the woman apparently belonged to the wealthier strata of society, which indicates the presence of gold rings on her hands. Particular attention was drawn to the ring with the image of the deity Bas, who guarded the hearth and women. However, the most surprising discovery was a bone mass with teeth found in the pelvic area of the skeleton. This formation, the researchers suggest, is an ovarian teratoma, a tumor containing tissue that is unusual for a given location, such as hair, bones, or teeth. Perhaps the amulet with the image of the demon was worn by a woman to relieve pain associated with ovarian disease. This discovery is especially valuable since teratomas are extremely rare in archaeological finds. This find is the oldest of all known similar tumors. Research on the Amarna woman suggests that she was an active participant in the social life of the city, which was the capital of Egypt during the reign of Akhenaten. Fresco with two-headed men. And again, excavations in Peru, and again, interesting frescoes await us. This time, at the 1,400-year-old archaeological site of Paniamarca, archaeologists have discovered frescoes depicting two-faced men holding unusual artifacts. Both frescoes decorating the same column in the main hall have many interesting details. One fresco depicts a man with two faces, holding a fan of feathers in one hand and a goblet from which 4 hummingbirds drink in the other. The second two-faced, depicted below on the column, holds a moving fan of feathers in one hand and a stick-shaped object in the other, only partially preserved. The people who lived in South America are still little studied. Why the Moche people portrayed these two men in this way remains a mystery. The Moche built huge temples, performed human sacrifice, and created beautiful works of art out of ceramics and gold. When studying these frescoes, archaeologists were divided into two opinions. Some believe that these were images of ancient deities, others dispute this since the images of deities in Moche art have non-human aspects such as fangs, animal muzzles, tails, or wings of various creatures. Archaeologists have been studying the frescoes in this place for more than 60 years, and despite this, most of the hall has not yet been excavated and probably other frescoes are waiting to be discovered. It is still unknown how the Moche used this hall. This place could hardly be public since the passages in it are very narrow and cramped. Therefore, for the time being, we will wait for further excavations here which will be able to uncover the mystery of the ancient two-headed creatures. Mummy's hand with a coin. A child's mummified hand holding a copper coin is a unique find that has puzzled scientists and opened up new horizons for research of mummification and the use of copper as an antimicrobial agent. Discovered in 2005 in an abandoned cemetery in Nyarlarinka, Hungary, this find has aroused wide interest among specialists. An analysis by a team of researchers found that copper contaminated on the infant's body contributed to soft tissue preservation. This was the first recorded case of copper-induced mummification. Scholars were also interested in the fact that the coin was in circulation in the middle of the 19th century, although the burial took place in a cemetery abandoned many years earlier. Such a find was an example of a unique case of mummification using copper, which may attract the attention of researchers and archaeologists in the future. This discovery provides an opportunity to expand our knowledge of ancient civilizations, their traditions and customs, as well as the use of various materials and methods to preserve the dead. Scientists have to study more cases like this to understand how copper and other materials were used in mummification and what were the beliefs and practices of ancient cultures associated with this process. Rare statue of Cahul. Unique statue found in Mexico. This is Cahul, the Mayan god of lighting and fertility. Archaeologists found it recently when they were building a railway for tourists, the Maya train. This road should be completed by 2024. The statue of Cahul is part of an urn found near one of the sections of the road. Cahul is often depicted with a head like a beast, with large eyes, a long snout, and serpentine legs that symbolize lightning bolts. Interestingly, Cahul's drawings are found in Mayan reliefs and in old books, but so far, only 3 statues of this god have been found. They are located in Guatemala in the city of Tikal. Therefore, this discovery in Mexico is a true luck. Experts looking for ancient objects in the area of the road construction have already made many discoveries. So far, they have found over 896,000 pottery, 491 bones, and nearly 49,000 structures or foundations. So the opening of the Cahul statue is not only interesting, but also a very important event. This allows scientists to learn more about the Maya and their ancient deity. Who knows what other secrets the ancient Maya hide from us? Mysterious coffin. This archaeological find discovered in Japan will make our journey into the past even more exciting. Archaeologists have found a huge stone coffin in the ruins of the ancient Yoshinagari fortress. The length of this coffin is a whole 3.2 meters. This is 1.5 meters more than the usual tombs of that time. Inside the coffin is another one, a little smaller, about 2.3 meters long. The coffin is composed of 4 stone slabs, each of which looks very impressive. The coffin was found in Yoshinagari Fortress, which is located in the Japanese province of Saga on the island of Kyushu. At that time, the fortress was the largest settlement in Japan, surrounded by a deep moat. Other tombs have already been explored in the ruins of the fortress, but this coffin is the largest of all that are known to science. Scientists have determined that this giant tomb was built between the 2nd and 3rd centuries during the era of the Yamatai state. There are marks on the surface of the coffin, probably made with sharp metal tools. Some of them resemble the Japanese katana character. Probably these signs serve to protect the deceased from evil forces. Scientists believe that someone very important could be buried in the coffin. After all, ordinary people were not buried on top of the hill. This is evidenced by the huge size of the tomb. The coffin will be opened soon, and what scientists will find inside, we will find out in the following videos. In the meantime, you can write your guess in the comments. What might be hidden inside the giant coffin? Also, do not forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up with new finds of archaeologists, and I will continue. Flute with hawk voice. Now let's go to Israel, to the site of the ancient settlement of Ain Mala. Here, under a layer of earth older than 12,000 years, 7 unique flutes made from thin bird bones were discovered. Imagine, these tools were created by our ancestors from the bones of birds of prey. Moreover, scientists are sure that the choice of bones and the location of the holes in them are not accidental. With their help, you can extract sounds very similar to the cries of birds of prey. According to researchers, these flutes were not musical instruments but were used for hunting. Ain Mala is an ancient settlement of the Natufians, the first hunter-gatherers who decided to settle in one place but did not give up hunting, fishing, and collecting fruits and plants. And they even learned to engage in agriculture and cattle breeding. Ain Mala is a near Hula Lake where migratory birds stop to rest. Based on the finds, local residents actively hunted waterfowl wintering on the lake. These flutes had from 1 to 4 holes, which, like in modern flutes, were clamped with fingers. Some even had a mouthpiece, and around the holes, there are a lot of scratches and marks proving that the tools were actively used. The researchers conducted an experiment and made the same flutes from dog bones. The sounds they made turned out to be very similar to the cries of birds of prey, kestrel and sparrowhawk. Presumably, with the help of these sounds, hunters attracted birds and then used their claws and feathers for decorations. Medieval female giant. In the Middle Ages, on the island of Ostrów-Lednicki in Poland, there lived a woman of extraordinary height who probably suffered from mental disorders. This is the only known giantess from Poland at that time, as confirmed by Dr. Magdalena Matzek. Her height was about 215 centimeters, while ordinary women were around 1.5 meters tall. The woman passed away at the age of 25-30. Her skeleton was found by researchers in the Lednice area. According to assumptions, the presence of such a disease could be accompanied by mental problems. Interestingly, despite her height, the life of a giantess in medieval Poland could have been quite comfortable since she was well known in her community. But her burial was unusual. Contrary to accepted traditions, her face was directed to the west, and she didn't have funerary objects. Panda in the tomb. The great Chinese Emperor Wen, who lived 2,200 years ago, passed away, and here's what's interesting. Near his last refuge, archaeologists discovered the remains of a giant panda and a tapir. Until that moment, scientists did not even suspect that tapirs could live in China during the reign of the emperor, and many other animals were found near the tomb, from mighty tigers to peacocks and golden-nosed monkeys. Many of them, unfortunately, are now endangered. Mayan ritual victims. At the archaeological site of Moral Reforma, where the ancient Mayans once reigned, scientists have found 13 burials with elongated skulls. Yes, and these poor fellas were beheaded. I often said that the Mayans had a special tendency to make skulls elongated, change their shape even in childhood. It was a sign of high status, and all new 13 skulls discovered belonged to men aged 17 to 45 years. Miriam Martinez, an anthropologist, says the skulls were cut off with a sharp object, although it is unclear whether such injury led to death or something that happened afterward. And one more interesting fact, some of the remains had a red pigment on them. What is it and why is it there? Scientists are still working on this issue. Cleopatra Cave Time Capsule. Just think, 130,000 years ago, people already chose this cave as their home. These are the conclusions archaeologists made while studying the Petra cave in the heart of Greece at the foot of Meteora. This amazing piece of land was formed between 137 and 65 million years ago. People found a cozy place to live in this cave, and its inner world turned out to be extremely spacious, about 500 square meters. And what's especially nice is that the cave is so light thanks to the huge entrance. The exploration of the cave began in 1987 and lasted for 20 years under the strict guidance of Dr. Nina Kiperisi Apostoliki. Initially, the cave served as a shelter for local shepherds' sheep, but then became a key site for archaeologists throughout Greece. Here's an interesting fact. Petra is the only cave in Greece where the historical lifeline from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic is clearly visible. Such a scientific window into the past is a real rarity. Petrified bullet. Mysterious 2,200-year-old bullet found inside stone in Crimea. Yeah, you heard me right, a bullet. In those days, small arms and gunpowder did not yet exist. Researchers discovered it when the stone cracked. How did the bullet end up inside the ancient stone? This find could change the whole history. Could it be that a bullet from the future hit the past and lain in the ground for several millennia? In any case, the artifact is shrouded in mystery and we can only guess what really happened. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. Statue of Hecate. In a mysterious corner of Turkey in the city of Kalanderes, archaeologists have made an incredible discovery. Hidden under the layers of earth was a three-headed statue of the goddess Hecate, and next to it was ancient pottery like the pages of a lost diary of past times. Since 1987, researchers have been trying to unravel the secrets of Kalanderes, and it seemed that this year they succeeded. The main treasure of the expedition is a unique statue of Hecate. These three-headed figurines were placed at crossroads serving as symbols of borders. Hecate is a real mystery of antiquity, the goddess of magic, the lord of the night, and the patroness of crossroads. Dr. Aiden, who leads this expedition, emphasized the deep connection between Kalanderes and another ancient city of Lagina. Wooden Stonehenge. Archaeologist Antonio Valero and his team in the Perdigus complex discovered an ancient wooden Stonehenge dating back to 2800–2600 BC. This circular foundation, 20 meters in diameter, is part of a huge megalithic landscape in the eastern part of the country. Such structures are found only in Central Europe and the British Isles. This wooden structure was the gathering place for the tribes for ceremonial rituals and astronomical observations. It was built and used for 1,400 years, and this is the first such structure in the Iberian Peninsula. Even the location shows that it served as a kind of ancient calendar, since the entrances to the halls are oriented to the solstice and equinox. The discovery of 16 hands. Recently, archaeologists discovered something shocking in the city of Avaris: 16 human hands buried in 4 pits near the palace. And you know what's the strangest thing? All of these hands are right, and they all belong to fairly large people. These hands are traces of an ancient custom described in Egyptian texts. The soldiers cut off the right hand of the enemy and exchanged it for gold. By cutting off the right hand, the soldiers not only made it easier to count the defeated enemies, but also symbolically took away their strength. Who these hands belong to is a mystery. It could be the hands of the Egyptians or those with whom they fought, the Hyksos. Such a cruel custom existed among the Hyksos and the Egyptians. Who started first, no one knows, but the cruel treatment of captives in ancient Egypt was quite common. Wooden structure 500,000 years old. Archaeologists from China have made an astonishing discovery at Kalambo Falls in South Africa. They discovered traces of the life of ancient representatives of the genus Homo, which are about 476,000 years old. The main discovery is fragments of a wooden structure, which indicates that these people not only used wood to create tools, but also for construction. The Kalambo Falls site itself is an archaeological treasure containing artifacts from various cultures, but this recent discovery has revolutionized symbolize the way ancient people lived. Wooden structures dating back to the Middle Pleistocene era proved that people of this time could lead a sedentary lifestyle engaged in construction and wood processing. Scientists have concluded that these structures were part of a dwelling or other large structure. They may have used them not only for shelter, but also for social or religious ceremonies. However, the question of who exactly was the creator of this architectural heritage remains open. It could be Homo erectus or another representative of the genus Homo. Scientists now have every reason to believe that ancient representatives of the genus Homo were much more advanced than we previously thought. Ancient marble disc. The underwater world of the Mediterranean Sea hides not only colorful fish but also the secrets of ancient civilizations. Israeli diver David Shalom made an incredible discovery off Palmakin Beach. He found a 2,400-year-old marble disc at the bottom of the sea. There are only 4 such discs in the whole world. Ancient ships were decorated with such discs, which served not only as decoration but also as protection from the evil eye. These sea amulets looked like eyes, helping sailors navigate the water and warn of possible dangers. This disc has a diameter of 20 centimeters, one side is flat and the other is convex, and most importantly, traces of paint are still preserved on it. 12 painted tombs of the grandson of Genghis Khan. Imagine that you are a brave archaeologist and you have just made an amazing find in the eastern part of China in the Shandong province. Your team has discovered as many as 12 ancient tombs decorated with breathtaking paintings and carvings. Their age is about 700 years. These tombs are the real treasures of the Yuan dynasty, founded by the Mongol Khan Kublai Khan, who was the grandson of the great conqueror Genghis Khan. It is important to note that this find has become one of the most significant for this part of China. According to an inscription found in the burial complex, the tombs belonged to the Guo family, but the most surprising thing was discovered by archaeologists in one of the tombs where there were 2 burial chambers. There, magnificent paintings and frescoes made of carved bricks awaited them. These designs were hand-carved with chisels and wooden hammers. Until now, on these frescoes you can see herons and tree branches, symbols of good luck in Chinese culture. But that is not all. More than 60 items were found in the tombs, including earthenware and porcelain dishes, bronze mirrors, copper coins, and other valuable artifacts. This will give scientists new insights into the culture and production of porcelain during the Yuan dynasty. Mysterious stone pyramids. For the first time, this find was talked about in 2015, and in my first videos on the channel, I most likely even talked about it. Then, at the bottom of Lake Constance, located on the border of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, archaeologists found a chain of 170 stone pyramids. They formed a 20-kilometer strip running parallel to the lakeshore 200 meters from it. Each pyramid had a diameter of 30 meters and a height of about 2. The pyramids are located on a layer of lacustrine deposits formed after the retreat of the Rhine Glacier more than 10,000 years ago. Now, archaeologists have more modern equipment to study ancient objects, especially those located in hard-to-reach places. With the help of an excavator, they excavated one of the pyramids to get to the stone layer. There, they also found wood with traces of primitive processing. Thanks to this wood, archaeologists managed to somehow date the pyramids. So far, the use of the pyramids by ancient people has several options. These could be places of worship or some kind of crypts for the burial of people, but perhaps everything is much simpler. These were ancient houses or fish traps. The team of archaeologists plans to return to Lake Constance soon to investigate the next stone pyramid. Perhaps this will provide additional information for dating and explaining the functions of the mysterious monuments. We know that archaeologists, quite by accident, can find something insignificant there that can fully explain the origin of the ancient pyramids. Enough underwater finds, let's better deal with the marriage scam in ancient Egypt. Ancient dagger in India. Let's take a ride to the incredibly interesting state of Tamil Nadu, south of India. In this place, a team of archaeologists stumble upon the ancient ghost town of Kontagay and a completely forgotten civilization. It was then that they discovered a super mysterious artifact, an iron dagger. The dagger is 2,500 years old and still in good condition with a wooden handle. The director of the State Department of Archaeology is sure that the dagger was used during the Sanam era, and this was approximately from the 3rd century BC to the 3rd century AD. To be 100% sure, the researchers sent the find to the United States for examination. But that is not all. Archaeologists have also found human skeletons, animal remains, and even entire houses with brick walls and mud floors. Apparently, our Indian ancestors were very advanced. They played board games, had their own language and writing. Graphite phallus. And now another story about the phallus, this time graphite one. In northern Mongolia, at the archaeological site of Tolbor 21, scientists have discovered an artifact that is already 42,000 years old. And you know what? This is the oldest symbolic phallus in Eurasia. When Alexander Fedorshenko, a specialist in the study of traces of human activity, first saw the object under a microscope, he immediately realized that it looked like a phallus. But other scientists did not believe him at first. They thought that it was just an engraved stone. After doing research, they found that the item was broken and used as a pendant. An interesting fact, guys, the object is made of graphite, and the nearest deposit of this mineral is located at a distance of 100 kilometers from Tolbor 21. Here's a riddle for the detective of archaeology, but the most important thing is that now this is the oldest image of the phallus in Eurasia and the only phallic pendant in the world from the Paleolithic era, discovered in a layer of earth that is already 42,000 years old. Scientist Yevgeny Rybin clarified that this discovery shows that already in those ancient times, gender signs, both male and female, played an important role in human symbolism. 1,600-year-old women's sandals. Archaeologists in Turkey have discovered an amazing find, women's sandals and a wooden comb, which are approximately 1,600 years old. It is reported that on the sole of the sandals there is an inscription in Greek, "Use these ladies, wear them for beauty and happiness." Artifacts were found on the territory of the ancient port of Theodosius, founded on the coast of the Sea of Marmara at the end of the 4th century AD. During Byzantine times, the port was considered one of the important harbors of Constantinople. Today, Theodosius is located in one of the districts of Istanbul, where archaeological excavations are carried out. Scientists believe that the sandals and the comb were kept in good condition due to the lack of oxygen in the soil, since the ancient port was covered with a thick layer of sand. This unique find allows you to learn more about the life of people in those days and about the fashion that was popular among women. Glass brain. A unique find, and the only one of its kind, was discovered by archaeologists during their excavations in Italy. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, it was a disaster for a huge number of people. The Roman cities of Pompeii, Herculaneum, and Stabiae were completely covered with lava and volcanic ash. Archaeologists are still excavating here trying to find something interesting. This time they were lucky. They found a real human glass brain. The thermal energy released during the eruption was 500 times greater than the release during the explosion of the atomic bomb over Hiroshima. The remains of a 25-year-old man from Herculaneum who died in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius were discovered in the 1960s. His body was found in a small room in the College of Augustus, a structure dedicated to the Emperor Octavian Augustus. The guy's body was on the bed, and judging by his posture, he was sleeping at the time of death. To conduct the research and study of ancient artifacts, researchers have to study everything bit by bit. Archaeologists, without hesitation, decided to open the guy's skull and found inside a piece of glass into which the brain had turned. No similar glazing was observed in other parts of the body. The analysis showed that the material in the skull is indeed a human brain. Characteristic fatty acids were found in the glass fragments. They could not get into the skull from the outside. There were no traces of them nearby. According to the charred remains of a tree, scientists found that the temperature in this place reached 520 degrees Celsius. The fat in the man's body literally ignited, and the soft tissues evaporated. After that, the temperature around it dropped sharply, which led to the glazing of the remains of the brain. Light man turned into a spongy mass, which was also not observed in other remains. Scientists have already seen a similar situation with the lungs in the victims of more modern tragic events, such as the fires in Dresden and Hamburg during World War II. Let's move on from the glass brain to glass tools. Giant sword in Japan. Japan is famous for its history, and especially the history of ancient swords, which were unusually large. In Tomiya Maruyama Burial Mound, archaeologists found an iron sword, dako, 2.3 meters long. The dako blade got its name from its wavy serpentine shape. Japanese archaeologists often found such swords in burial graves, and there are already more than 80 such finds, but this sword has its own uniqueness. It is the longest of all that has been preserved in its entirety. It was impossible to use such swords in battle, especially considering the average height of the Japanese. Most likely, the sword was really used only as a variety of ceremonies. The mirror and shields were used as a tool to protect the dead from evil spirits, and a giant sword could enhance such protection. In addition to the sword, a bronze mirror in the shape of a shield was found in the burial, although such mirrors were usually round in shape. Its dimensions were 64 by 31 centimeters, and its weight was almost 6 kilograms. Archaeologists have not yet noticed signs of looting, so they hope they can figure out who is in the closed coffin and who owns the grave goods. The approximate age of the burial is 300–710 AD. Ancient skull comb. Today, combs are made from a wide variety of materials: plastic, metal, or wood. But in the Iron Age in England, combs were made from human skulls. At least one such find was discovered by archaeologists during the construction of a highway in Bar Hill. The comb was found in 2018, but only now scientists have told about the results of their study. At first glance, it seems that there is nothing unusual in it, but the material of its production, to put it mildly, shocked archaeologists. It was a human skull. But scientists did not find traces of use on the comb. This means that they did not comb their hair with the comb, but most likely used it as an amulet. A hole was also found on it, possibly for a thread or rope. Probably the amulet was created from the skull of an important person who was revered in the Iron Age even after death. There is an assumption that these could be the remains of a relative. Interestingly, this is the third such comb found. In the 70s of the last century and in 2000, the same ones were already found, and also not far from Bar Hill. Most likely in this region during the Iron Age, this was a common practice, what people did not invent in ancient times to protect themselves from evil spirits. Prehistoric cemetery in the Arctic. Finnish archaeologists have discovered an ancient cemetery 6.5 years old, 80 kilometers south of the Arctic Circle. It turned out to be 3 times larger than previously expected and is one of the largest in Europe. Due to the acidity of the soil, no human remains were preserved, but researchers found that about 120 people were buried here. Early excavations at Tainiaro, Lapland, in the 1980s and 1990s revealed about 40 graves. However, recent work in 2018 showed that there were much more burials. Archaeologist Aki Hekkonen noted that the Stone Age graves often contain red ochre, which is in short supply at Tainiaro. Ochre was used in the Neolithic for rituals, including burials. Although ochre was found in only 23 pits at Tainiaro, the shape of the pits suggests they were graves. Some of them contained ash and coal, which may indicate their use as hearth. Hekkonen says new soil samples could be analyzed for the presence of fossilized hair, and chemical analysis, including extracting ancient DNA from soil, could provide unique results and new insights into Stone Age society. The ominous cemetery of the revenants. The next find may scare you a little. In the central part of Italy, archaeologists have excavated in the cemetery. In fact, this is a common practice in the world of archaeology. But not all cemeteries are 1,600 years old, and not all of them are associated with legends about revenants. So in local folklore, they called the risen from the graves of the dead. I wanted to say that in ancient times people were more superstitious than in our time, but I would most likely be mistaken. There have always been superstitious people, and human fear has always forced people to commit crazy acts. So in ancient Italy, people believed that the dead could rise from the graves, and so that it doesn't happen, the deceased should be buried and a huge stone should be placed on top of him. I talked about a similar find in Denmark in one of my previous videos. So in Italy, in an ancient cemetery, the remains of children were found, whose bodies were crushed by stones. Some were buried with stones in their mouth. Archaeologists believe that this was part of some ancient ritual. They believed that the dead could become revenants. We know them better as zombies. Another evidence of this ritual is the remains of puppies, which were brought to the cemetery and buried with the children. Scientists have already managed to conduct a number of studies and concluded that most children died of malaria. And most likely it was this disease that caused fear in people, and it seemed to them that a person could be resurrected. In those days, Christianity was gaining popularity in this region, but this did not stop people from believing in the uprising of the dead. There was a fear of the undead both among pagans and Christians. At the same time, many believed that witches could use revenants for their own selfish purposes. As I understand it, 1,500 years ago there were no dull moments in Italy. And the next final story for today will be about a real Thumbelina. Mysterious footprint on the ground. Another mysterious find was discovered by archaeologists in Israel in the old city of Jerusalem. In the previously buried massive ditch, the researchers found an engraved handprint on the wall. Scientists carried out excavations near one of the main highways of the city. It is believed that the ditch was dug by the Muslim defenders of the city around the 10th century to strengthen the defenses of the city walls. Archaeologists had no idea that one of the most important city streets was built right over a huge ditch. It is interesting that the ditch was carved directly into the rock. Its width is 10 meters and its depth is from 2 to 7 meters. Archaeologists still cannot understand why the ancient builders left a handprint more than 1,000 years ago. Interestingly, this imprint could belong to some kind of ruler or priest, as well as an ordinary builder with a sense of humor. As we all know, ditches were dug in order to fill them with water. In our case, the ditch was never filled with water. Ancient engineers believed that the size of this barrel would be enough to hold or slow down the enemy. Celtic village and Roman settlement. Archaeological breakthrough in Munich. On the northern outskirts of the German metropolis, scientists have stumbled upon an amazing discovery: the remains of an ancient Celtic village dating back 2,500 years and traces of Roman settlers. The village, flourishing during the era of the Celtic civilization of Latin, was home to our ancestors right up to the first millennium AD. And now, while digging for a new residential area, archaeologists have discovered houses from that era whose outlines we see as mysterious circles on the ground. At the very center of the settlement stood an imposing building surrounded by wooden structures resembling colonnades, possibly a gathering place for the local community. Archaeologists also found different types of dwellings and evidence that the inhabitants lived in half-timbered houses. The amazing cemeteries of this era, with evidence from Celtic and Roman times, make us understand that this area was inhabited and rich for many centuries. Each ceramic plate, jug with intact handle, drinking vessel made of soapstone, and even the rare sickle from the barrels tell stories of days long gone. Axe over 200,000 years old. Archaeologists in Saudi Arabia have unearthed a basalt axe which is now being studied to understand its purpose. A tool dating back more than 200,000 years was found in the Al Ula area. The find was made near an ancient settlement rich in archaeological treasures. The city of Kirk, also known as Al Mabiyat, has a rich history and attractions dating back to different eras. The tool discovered by the Tejas Heritage team measures more than half a meter in length and shows signs of being used for chopping. Careful analysis is ongoing to determine its role in the lives of ancient people. Who owns this hand? Today we will go back in time and plunge into the mysterious world of the ancient Romans. Our starting point will be Fort Vindolanda, one of the first Roman military camps in what is now England. For many centuries, 9 fortifications were built here. In 2018, an amazing discovery was made here. The researchers found a bronze hand the size of a child. But it's not just a hand. On its palm was a place for something that unfortunately has not survived to this day. And yet, at the base of the hand, there is a hole as if it was attached to something. The mystery becomes even more interesting because the hand was found near the temple of Jupiter Dolichon. Most likely, the hand was part of some religious ritual. Similar finds were made in other temples of this god. Now you can see this hand in the Vindolanda Museum. This is a vivid reminder that temple life and the practices associated with the worship of Dalichen were much richer than people previously thought. And the most interesting thing is that all knowledge about the cult of Jupiter Dalichen is based on rare inscriptions, sculptures, and other examples of art found in different parts of the former Roman Empire. So every new discovery is a step towards unraveling this ancient mystery. What do you think? Could this hand be used for some mystical purpose? Write your opinion in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss a new video. And I will continue. 1,000-year-old mummy. Have you heard about the latest archaeological discovery from the capital of Peru, Lima? Researchers have discovered a 1,000-year-old mummy. The discovery was made in the prestigious Miraflores area, near which researchers discovered 2 ceramic vessels and ancient fabrics. The mummy is said to be associated with the Ixma culture, an ancient people who lived south of Lima. It's interesting that Lima has already surprised us with such finds. Recently, another mummy was found at the top of a hill, surrounded by cocoa leaves. And the most interesting thing is that this place of Huaca Pilana is considered an archaeological gold mine. Scientists are sure there are still many secrets waiting to be discovered. New secrets of the St. Balak plate. The ancient stone slab of St. Balak, 4,000 years old, has been actively studied by scientists since its discovery in 2014 in a French mound. In 2021, it received the status of the oldest map of Europe. Researchers believe the slab may contain clues to the treasure based on the designs and symbols carved into it. This unique slate artifact was first found in Finistère, western France in 1900. But the mystery of the slab remained unsolved, and it lay in the castle for more than a century until scientists began studying it again. The slab, measuring 2 by 1.5 meters, according to experts, is a map of the Brittany region. Rivers, mountains, and other natural features are engraved on it. Interestingly, the depressions on the slab may indicate ancient settlements of burial mounds. When comparing the drawings with modern maps of Brittany, an astonishing 80% agreement was found. Research into this ancient map continues. It covers an area of 30 by 21 kilometers, and it may take scientists up to 15 years to fully study it. Excavations near the site of the slab have already yielded new fragments used in the construction of ancient tombs. 5,000-year-old wine. A team of scientists from the University of Vienna, led by archaeologist Christian Köhler, is exploring the burial ground of Queen Merit-Neith in Abydos, the greatest ruler around the 31st century BC. Recent discoveries highlight its important role in history. Archaeologists have discovered 5,000-year-old wine and many other funerary objects. These discoveries confirm that Merit-Neith was the first female pharaoh, preceding the famous Hatshepsut. What makes Merit-Neith special is that she had a unique monumental tomb in the first royal necropolis of Abydos. The mystery of her identity has not yet been solved. During the excavations, many funerary objects were found, including hundreds of beautifully preserved wine jugs. Some of them are still sealed and contain ancient wine. Inscriptions indicate that Merit-Neith controlled key government bodies such as the treasury, confirming her exceptional place in history. The queen's funerary complex at Abydos, consisting of the graves of 41 courtiers and her tomb, was built of mud brick, clay, and wood. Research has shown that construction was carried out gradually over a long period of time. Treasure with 1,000 coins. The story happened in Poland, where a resident named Michał Lotysz, using a metal detector, was looking for parts of a tractor on a farm. However, what he found made him very happy. It was a jug with coins from the 17th century. The treasure was found near the small village of Zaniówka in eastern Poland, not far from the borders with Belarus and Ukraine. Judging by the place of discovery, archaeologists believe that they buried it purposefully around the second half of the 17th century. As I said earlier, the search for ancient artifacts with a metal detector is not allowed in all countries. For example, in Poland, it is considered illegal. Therefore, a local resident immediately turned to archaeologists who have permission to conduct excavations. In total, the jar contained 1,000 copper coins. We often hear that archaeologists find 500 coins, 1,000, and 10,000, but we often do not understand whether this is a lot or not. In this situation, archaeologists were helped by historical documents from the 17th century. Thus, the researchers were able to roughly calculate what could be bought with these coins before. In fact, a jug filled with copper coins is not such a large amount of money. In the 17th century, they could buy 2 pairs of shoes or perhaps 20 gallons of beer. Ancient sword replica. An interesting incident occurred in the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago, USA. Their museum kept what they thought was a replica of an ancient sword. This Bronze Age weapon was found in the Danube River in Budapest, Hungary in the 1930s. Hungarian archaeologists visiting this museum in the USA asked to take a closer look at the sword, and what they recognized amazed them. The sword was exposed to X-rays to ionize the material it was made from. By measuring the energy and intensity of the X-rays coming out of the material, scientists can find out what it is. In the case of the sword, it has been found to be almost identical to other Bronze Age European swords. It contained a similar content of bronze, copper, and tin. Usually, in this way, archaeologists manage to prove that the artifact turns out to be a fake, and not the original as previously thought. In our case, the study of the sword by archaeologists was shocking. The sword, believed to be a replica, turned out to be almost 3,000 years older than previously thought, but the team of scientists was able to prove this too late, so the weapon will not be shown to visitors in the museum. They want to study it in even more detail in order to understand who it belonged to and how it got there. Researchers believe the sword was placed in the Danube as part of an ancient ritual, perhaps in memory of a lost loved one or a battle. Ancient blueprints. And now we will go on an exciting journey into the past, where we will reveal the secret of ancient drawings, the age of which is stunning, as much as 8,000 years. Imagine huge structures that can only be seen from the air. It's not just rocks and a pile of sand. No, these are the great creations of people of antiquity, the design of which still makes us think. Scientists call them kites. These huge structures, according to one theory, could serve as hunting traps for ancient people. But what if we have the key to understanding their true purpose? Guys, meet rock paintings found in Jordan and Saudi Arabia. Their age is astronomical 8,000 years. These lines and stars adorn the rocks and megaliths that are part of our kites. But what if these drawings are not just decorations, but real blueprints according to which the ancient hunters built their huge traps several kilometers long? This is the hypothesis proposed by scientists. They compared the drawings engraved on the rocks with the shape and size of known kites. One of these drawings is on an 80 cm limestone monolith from Jordan. It is engraved with long lines crowned with an 8-pointed star. It was in such a star, presumably, that the hunters throw their prey. And the second confirmation was found in Saudi Arabia. Here, on a sandstone boulder measuring 2 by 4 meters, drawings of 2 kites were found at once, and they all have something in common: star-shaped paddocks and trap pits at the end of the star's race. The face and phallus of the ancient Romans. We raised the anchors and set off for Spain, where archaeologists from the University of Alicante made an amazing discovery. They found an ancient carving on a rock with images of a face, a cornucopia, and, believe it or not, a phallus. This discovery was made in the castle of Tossal de la Cala. Imagine, this carving hiding on the rocks has been living for about 2,000 years. In those ancient times, around 8072 BC, the area was a Roman fort where the Romans defended themselves in a civil war. This mysterious stone depicts a human face next to which a phallus and a cornucopia are carved. The carving is quite large, about 57 by 42 centimeters, but it appears to be incomplete because the top is missing. Why was it created, you may ask? It could be ancient graffiti or some sort of ritual symbol. The phallus for the Romans was a symbol of masculine strength and the security of the state, so its presence speaks of a certain protective function of the carving. And the cornucopia, which is also depicted there, is often associated with the Roman deities of harvest and prosperity. Let us recall the myth of Hercules, who plucked the horn from the river god Aeschylus and turned it into a cornucopia. So it is possible that this mystical carving depicts a god or goddess representing a abundance. But this is only one of the versions. But you can write your opinion in the comments on this matter. Why do you think the phallus was depicted next to the face in ancient Rome? Did the Romans really believe that such a carving would help secure the state? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The oldest inscription in Cyrillic. Imagine you're digging in the ground and you come across something very old. What would you do? But the scientists who recently worked in the ruins of a fortress in Bulgaria were simply delighted. They found a breastplate that is over 1,100 years old. Can you imagine how many years ago that was? And what's especially interesting is that the breastplate has an inscription on it, and it may be the oldest example of Cyrillic, one of the written alphabets we use today. This inscription is engraved on a lead plate. I think someone wore it on their chest to ward off old troubles and evil. This inscription mentions two people, Pavel and Dmitry. Who they are, no one knows for sure. Perhaps Dmitry served in the fortress and Pavel was his relative. Apparently, this inscription was made during the reign of Tsar Simeon I, who ruled Bulgaria from 893 to 927. Most likely, the plate got into the fortress between 916 and 927. Prior to this, the oldest texts in Cyrillic were those that were written in 921, so this bib is something special. Perhaps scientists will soon learn more about it. Did you know that the Cyrillic alphabet originated from the Greek alphabet and additional letters were added to it for those sounds that were not in the Greek language? Cyrillic is used in many countries of Eastern Europe as well as in Central and North Asia. It was first adopted in Bulgaria as the official alphabet. Spirit protection mirror. In the north of Israel, in the ancient city of Usha, school children found a unique item that was used to protect against evil spirits. This happened within the framework of the state program Survival Course for Young Leaders. Usha is a place with a rich history. In the 2nd century AD, the Sanhedrin, the main authority of the Jews, even lived there. But our artifact is even older. Scientists have confirmed that this is a fragment of the frame of a small mirror that was popular from the late Roman era until the advent of Islam. But it was not just a mirror, it was an amulet to scare away demons. This mirror hung on the wall of the house like a charm. Maybe our ancestors had their own methods of dealing with evil spirits. At that time, Christianity and Judaism lived side by side with ancient beliefs and magic. Therefore, after a Christian prayer, a Jew could go to a fortune teller, decorate the house with amulets and mirrors, as they say, just in case. So the next time you hang a mirror on your wall, think about how your ancient ancestors did it thousands of years ago. Perhaps you not only decorate your home, but also scare away ancient evil spirits. Mummy on top of the pyramid. In Peru, archaeologists discovered a mummy that is about 1,000 years old. Researchers believe that the mummy belongs to the pre-Incan Ixma culture. The mummy was buried in a simple round tomb at the top of a pyramid located in the heart of a residential area of Peru's capital, Lima. Huaca Pilana is a monumental clay pyramid over 20 meters high located in the Miraflores region. This structure, consisting of 7-step platforms, was erected by the Lima culture, which developed on the central coast of Peru between 200 and 700 AD. This site served as an important religious center for the ancient inhabitants. Ritual ceremonies were probably held on the site. The Huaca Pilana site reveals 3 distinct phases of settlement prior to the arrival of the Spaniards. The first was the Lima culture, followed by the Uari and Ixma cultures. The Ixma culture, which developed around 1000 AD until its assimilation by the Incas in the 15th century, used the pyramid as a burial site. The oldest fortresses on the planet. Traditionally, we thought that complex defensive structures only appeared with the development of agriculture, but now everything is different. 10 hunter-gatherer fortifications dating back to 8,000 years have been found in Siberia. These settlements, located on the banks of rivers, were protected by earthen ramparts and wooden palisades. The ancient inhabitants of this area not only hunted and fished, but also created ceramic vessels for storing food. Their ability to create serious fortifications testifies to the incredible complexity of their lives. Many believe that permanent settlements with fortifications arose in agricultural societies, but this find refutes this theory. It turns out that even hunter-gatherers could create complex societies. The presence of abundant resources in the Siberian taiga likely played a key role in the emergence of these settlements. These fortifications may have been used to control and efficiently utilize local resources. Oldest working compass. Archaeologists from the Estonian Maritime Museum have revealed details of recent finds at the excavation site of a medieval merchant ship in Tallinn. The ship, discovered a year ago, is perfectly preserved and reveals the secrets of the past. A particularly valuable find was one of the oldest magnetic compasses in Europe with a dry card, which is unique since the sensitive elements of compasses are usually in liquid. Also found on board were antique tools, worn leather shoes, a wooden spoon, and the remains of 2 ship rats, which were surprisingly well preserved. The remains of the ship were found near the Estonian Harjapea River. At first, it was assumed that these were the remains of a cog, the main Hanseatic merchant ship, but the presence of a second mast indicates a possible transitional type between the cog and the hulk. Scientists drank 2.6 billion-year-old water. As soon as the world calmed down from the pandemic, scientists decided to conduct a new, unusual experiment. Without hesitation, it seems to me, they decided to taste the water, which is 2.6 billion years old. Water has been preserved from the time when there was not even free oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere, and the first multicellular organisms began to appear almost a billion years later. This water was not like we are used to seeing it. It was salty and sticky. Is it really water though? Water was found in thin cracks in the granite of a Canadian mine. The source was several kilometers below the Earth's surface. Canadian geologist and geochemist Professor Barbara Sherwood Lola decided to taste the oldest water on the planet. She is known for her research on water resources. It's even scary to imagine how much water she tasted in her entire life. According to her statements, the water turned out to be salty, viscous, and having the consistency of light maple syrup. The liquid is extremely salty due to the reaction between water and rock, and also has a higher viscosity than tap water. It also turned orange as minerals begin to form in it. While someone is tasting the viscous liquid of the earth, I will tell you about the oldest skates from China. The oldest evidence of cannibalism. In Gough's Cave, located in southeast England, archaeologists from Natural History Museum in London found ancient traces of cannibalism. This is evidenced by 15,000-year-old remains of human bones with cuts and teeth marks. As scientists point out, this act of cannibalism may have been part of a funeral ritual and not a forced measure. It was a cultural practice common among the Magdalenian culture in the late Paleolithic. This culture was one of the main ones in Europe approximately between 23 and 14,000 years ago. In contrast, the other dominant culture of the time, the Epigravettian, practiced funerary rites that are more familiar to us. As evidence of the symbolic nature of Magdalenian cannibalism, scientists cite finds such as decorative items made from human bones, including a cup carved from a skull and an engraved bone. Atlas sculpture. The impressive discovery at Chichen Itza enhances understanding of the extensive cultural connections between Mexico's ancient civilizations. The discovered atlas likely played an important role in religious or cultic ceremonies, and its detailed carvings indicate a high level of skill by ancient artisans. That the sculpture was found during construction in a modern area is a reminder of how deeply the roots of history run deep into the earth, even other places that seem long forgotten or lost. Atlas from Chichen Itza will be another testimony to the glorious and multifaceted history of ancient Mexican civilizations. 200-year-old wine. During excavations near the walls of the Kazan Kremlin, archaeologists from the Kalikov Institute of Archaeology of the Academy of Sciences of the Republic of Tatarstan in Russia discovered a wine cellar from the early 19th century. It contained 0.3-liter green glass bottles, sealed with wax stamps with the manufacturer's initials and year of manufacture. Most of the bottles were broken, but 2 remained intact, and one of them still contained liquid. Scientists have established that the bottles were produced in 1814-1815 at the Sheriatinska glass factory in the Igoryevsky district of the Ryazan province. It is assumed that the wine cellar belonged to the Pereskovo-Patynska church, and the wine was used for church ceremonies, in particular for communion. This archaeological find will be subjected to chemical analysis to determine the composition and properties of the ancient wine drink. Ancient aliens are real. At the first hearings in the Mexican parliament, journalist and ufologist Jamie Mawson already tried to convince of the authenticity of the mummies supposedly thousands of years old. His attempts were unsuccessful then, and parliamentarians recalled past incidents with mummies of Nazca Indians which turned out to be fake. Humanoids, similar to characters from science fiction films, aroused distrust among the hearing participants. The ufologists referred to research from the National Autonomous University of Mexico, but did not provide convincing evidence of their extraterrestrial origin. At the next hearing, ufologist Masson invited anthropologist Roger Zuniga, who stated that there were no traces of human intervention in the formation of humanoids. He stressed that their origin remains unknown. Argentine surgeon Celestino Adolfo Pieto expressed the opinion that the humanoids could be an evolved version of modern humans, calling them our descendants. Do you believe in the reality of these mummies? Write your opinion in the comments under the video. It's really interesting to know how many people among my viewers believe in alien mummies. Decorated Roman sandal. The recent archaeological breakthrough in the Roman town of Lucus Asturum in Spain has become a real sensation. At this picturesque site, which served as an important administrative center between the 1st and 4th centuries, a remarkably preserved 2,000-year-old Roman sandal was discovered. During the excavations, scientists found an ancient well in which the lost shoes were found. In order to carefully remove it, archaeologists used a special system. These shoes were special. They had unique patterns in the form of circles, ovals, and falcon figures. It is noteworthy that among all the known Roman sandals in Spain, only this one is decorated. The silt at the bottom of the well protected it from time, creating conditions that prevented destruction. In addition to the sandal, many other items were found in the well: a wooden lid, jugs, seeds, shellfish, and metal objects. At the moment, the sandal is under guard in the refrigerator until restoration work is completed. This Roman sandal is a stunning moment in history, providing a glimpse into the creativity and daily life of the ancient Romans. Ancient Neolithic settlement. I completely missed one small country which, due to its geographical location, has a very ancient history. Archaeologists have discovered the oldest settlement in North Macedonia dating back to the early Neolithic. Judging by radiocarbon analysis, the oldest layers of the Vlaho site date back to 6410–6240 BC. Not later than 10th millennium BC, this region, which was called the Fertile Crescent, became famous for a very important event. During this period, a very important moment in the history of mankind began: Neolithization. This is the period when people stopped hunting and gathering and began to grow everything themselves. That is, agriculture and animal breeding appeared. Later, Neolithization began in Turkey, Greece, and throughout the Balkan Peninsula. And 5,000 years ago, the entire continent was already engaged in agriculture and animal breeding. To determine the age of the buildings found here, scientists used accelerator mass spectrometry. For dating, they selected samples of charred grains of cereals. The earliest date obtained showed that the settlement existed around 6410–6240 BC. As you can see, even small grains are important to archaeologists, by which they can find out the age of an entire settlement. And the next find is even smaller than grains of cereals, but no less valuable. Rare Bronze Age tool. During excavations for a gas pipeline in a small town of Este in northern Italy, archaeologists discovered a 3,300-year-old wooden yoke dating back to the late Bronze Age. The area is famous for its archaeological finds, but no Bronze Age settlement has been found here before. The yoke, used to fasten oxen around the neck with straps, offers a glimpse into the deep past, demonstrating the size of the oxen of that time. They were smaller than modern ones. An interesting trace of repair in the yoke indicates that in ancient times it was repaired after a breakdown. The marshy terrain during the Bronze Age contributed to the preservation of wooden objects, as people built their homes on stilts above the water. This created conditions for long-term conservation of organic materials. The finds are carefully studied at the Roman Institute of Restoration. Although the discovery of the yoke is an important step, archaeologists continue to explore, awaiting new discoveries. This artifact suggests how much more is in the earth and reminds us that human history is many fragments of one big picture. Semi-precious stones in the sewers. Right under our feet in the English city of Carlisle, archaeologists have discovered amazing ancient treasures from the time of the Roman Empire. Just think, exactly on the spot where the British now play cricket, once there were large pools of Roman baths. These baths were very popular among soldiers and their wives who lived in the 3rd century. Do you know what our archaeologist friends found in the drainage channels of these baths? They found a whole collection of semi-precious stones that seemed to have accidentally fallen and were lost in the seething waters of the bath. Imagine, these baths were like royal palaces, big enough to accommodate 1,000 soldiers and their wives. It's time to dig, and here's what archaeologists found. Hundreds of glass beads, dozens of women's hairpins, ancient coins, and of course, these amazing stones. A total of 36 were found. These were small but very beautiful stones carved from amethyst, jasper, and other semi-precious minerals. Each of them depicted various Roman gods and goddesses. But the question remains, how did these decorations get into the bath drainage system? In ancient Rome, people loved to wear rings with beautiful gemstones. However, these stones were kept on the rings thanks to a special glue, which unfortunately could weaken in hot water. And so, while the Romans enjoyed their bath, the stones probably simply fell out of the rings and fell into the sewer. But then why didn't they just leave the decorations at home, you may ask? Good question. In ancient Roman bath, before entering the pool, people took off their clothes, remaining only in special sandals. Some people hired servants to look after their belongings, but there weren't many of them. In most cases, the attendants of the bath watched over the stuff. However, there were occasional thefts, and some Romans decided to take the risk of taking all their valuables with them to the bath. And it seems that some of them have been lost forever, leaving us with magnificent artifacts to study and admire. Perhaps under our feet, there are mysterious jewelry of antiquity, which one of you will definitely discover someday. Write in the comments if you dreamed of finding a treasure of precious coins or ancient treasures, and be sure to tell us what was the most valuable thing you found throughout your life. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Cosmetic spoon with naked girl. Raise your hands, those who love jewelry and face masks. What if I tell you about a piece of jewelry that also held your favorite scented oils? Let's take a trip back to the time of ancient Egypt, where there lived a girl who could become a top model today. This girl is actually a cosmetic spoon made of ivory and ebony and painted in vibrant colors. It was a special kind of spoon used to hold cosmetics or essential oils. In fact, it was a whole tradition in ancient Egypt during the 18th and 19th dynasties. Our little model has been carved to look like a pink lotus flower with a lid that can be opened and closed. Her face is adorned with a black ebony wig, and her neck is adorned with a lotus petal necklace. She wears a tattoo in her waist, and dwarf gods are depicted on her hips who protected the house and family. This cosmetic spoon was found in Thebes in the early 1900s and is now in Moscow at the State Museum of Fine Arts, named after Pushkin, in the hall The Art of Ancient Egypt. And if you notice, our spoon girl has very long legs. In ancient Egypt, art often depicted women with disproportionately long legs. This was a kind of beauty standard of that time. Who knows, maybe they were the first models in the world. Turtle figurine. In England, near the village of Wycombe in Suffolk, researchers with metal detectors discovered a copper figurine of tortoise dating back to ancient Rome. This figurine, measuring 3 by 3 centimeters, did not have any fastenings, which indicates its possible belonging to a set of similar products. Experts dated to the beginning of the 2nd century AD, and similar finds were made in Colchester. The figurine features a typical tortoise shell with a worn top and a decorative patterns. Although one of the figurine's legs and tail is damaged, its head and other limbs are well preserved. In the ancient Roman period, turtles were associated with Mercury, the god of trade and travel. They were used in the making of lyres, musical instruments associated with Mercury. There is also a version about the connection of turtles with Sabazius, the Phrygian and Thracian god healer. Mayan statue without a head. In recent years, all finds from Mexico are associated with the construction of the Mayan train railway. I have already told several times in previous videos how many interesting things the builders managed to discover. This time, they found a headless statue the size of a man, 1.65 meters. Archaeologists believe that the limestone statue is Yom Kib, which translates as the god of the phallus, or fertility. It depicts a prisoner who was captured during a military conflict. Prisoners of war with high status were sacrificed, and soldiers in a simpler way were used as slaves. The sculpture was found in the ancient city of Oshkintok on the Yucatan Peninsula. Translated from the Mayan language, the name of the city means Stone of the Three Suns. The settlement existed from 250 to 900 AD, was first described in the 16th century. Near the city, a huge cave system was previously discovered where, according to archaeologists, local tribes were hiding from the Spanish colonizers. The last mention of the city was in 1500 AD, most likely at the same time the city ceased to exist. Archaeologists cannot yet name the exact reason why the city died out. Oshkintok is a very important and unique place. There are many engravings and inscriptions that tell us about the events of the past. Thanks to the coding method of the Soviet scientists, which I talked about, we ourselves are able to read about the events and people who were here more than 500 years ago. Visiting the ancient Mayan buildings is one of my goals for the coming years, and when I do, I will definitely tell you and show you. Miners' shocking discovery. Sometimes miners come across unusual artifacts that can surprise even archaeologists. In 2008, an unusual discovery was made in the Zapadne mine in Donetsk, Rostov region, at a depth of 900 meters. A wheel imprint was found in sandstones dating back to the Carboniferous period, 360–300 million years ago. Mining foreman Kasatking, who worked in the mine, shared photographs of the find. According to him, at the mine, classified as dangerous due to the risk of sudden releases of coal and gas, management banned exploration of the site and ordered work to be accelerated. As a result, another smaller print discovered later was not recovered for study. Kasatkin claimed that the mine, which was closed and flooded in 2009, yielded other amazing finds, including the imprints of giant snakes and possibly winged lizards. He also mentioned other unusual finds in coal mines around the world, including a stone block wall and hieroglyphs. These stories, despite their fantastic nature, make us think about the possibility of the existence of ancient civilizations that we do not yet know about. Such discoveries can open new horizons for archaeology and history, although official science often ignores such evidence, considering it miners' tales. What do you think? Can these mysterious finds really be evidence of ancient civilizations, or are they just coincidences? Write your opinion in the comments. UFO on the cover of an 18th century book. The discovery of an image of a UFO on the cover of a book by Johann Funk, published in 1716, has caused widespread controversy among ufologists. This image, depicting a classic flying saucer surrounded by bright lightning, is seen by many as confirmation that aliens visited Earth as early as 300 years ago. Despite controversy over whether alien visits actually occurred in the 1700s, the find confirms that people of the time were also interested in the idea of extraterrestrial civilizations. As always, people are divided into types. Some believe in UFOs, others are skeptical about such assumptions. Ufologists wonder about the technological development of aliens. Assuming that they actually visited Earth in the 18th century, how did their technology remain unchanged for 3 centuries? This refers to the shape of an alien ship. Obsidian mirror. Ancient civilizations in Mexico used obsidian mirrors, or tezcatls, as divination tools. Looking into the depth of the mirror, the sorcerers were transported to the world of gods and ancestors. Obsidian mirrors can be seen as a metaphor for the images of ancient Mexican monuments. They reflect not only the object, but also the person looking. The main accessory of the supreme Aztec god Tezcatlipoca is an obsidian mirror. His name translates to smoke and mirror. He is often depicted with a mirror on his chest, wearing jewelry, or in place of his right leg. Tezcatlipoca was the ruler of the 9 giant and its creatures, primarily the jaguar, which according to beliefs could move between the earthly and underground worlds. In 1969, American artist Robert Smithson visited Mayan ruins, following the path of writer John Lloyd Stevens. Despite traveling through Mayan territory, Smithson claimed to embody Tezcatlipoca. This experience inspired him to create a piece of art in which he used mirrors to illustrate time travel. In the early 20th century in Mexico City, Augustus Genin, a Mexican collector of French origin, amassed an extensive collection of pre-Columbian artifacts. Ancient Mexican mirrors from his collection survive to this day in various shapes and sizes. Sometimes they were reused, inserted into Christian crosses, or as symbols of vanity. The oldest diamond in the world. Now I will tell you again about precious stones, only very ancient ones. The story will not just be about a diamond, but about the oldest diamond on Earth. Just like in movies or treasure books, isn't it? An international team of scientists discovered this unique stone in Russia at the Udachnaya diamond deposit, which translates as lucky. Here the name itself speaks of greater luck for the miners. Measuring only 0.3 millimeters, this diamond is smaller than the head of a pin. It lived a very long life, and scientists were able to determine its age using sophisticated methods that sound like real magic. Isotope dating. Scientists thought that the diamond was formed deep underground at a depth of about 140 kilometers. It was very hot there, about 900 degrees Celsius, and the pressure was huge, 37,000 times more than on the Earth's surface. A diamond is 3.7 billion years old. But the most amazing thing is that this diamond deposit is located 20 kilometers from the Arctic Circle, very close to the place where polar bears live. It was here in 1955 that the Soviet geologist Vladimir Shukin discovered this lucky pipe, and then a whole city was built here for diamond mining. And in this pipe, huge diamonds were found, one of which was named after the great Russian poet Alexander Pushkin. Recipe from the grave. Czech scientists have recreated Celtic beer based on research of pollen from an ancient Celtic burial in Moravia. Beer has deep roots, with its first traces going back to the Middle East, where breweries emerged around 5,500 years ago. However, its full history still remains a mystery. Excavations carried out in 2020 and 2021 have opened new horizons in the understanding of ancient cultures, revealing the life and traditions of pre-Celtic people. Modern analyses of pollen found at the site have revealed traces of millets and other herbs used by the Celts to create beer. Scientists speculate that some ingredients, such as clover, may have served as sweeteners for the drink, pointing to complex taste preference and ancient technology. The created beer, Towery Ale, has a unique taste, different from modern varieties, emphasizing the role of various herbs and spices in its production. The lack of hops is an interesting aspect of the beer's flavor profile, making it similar to medieval recipes. Being one of humanity's oldest drinks, continues to connect people across cultures and centuries. Funeral ring with the eye of the deceased. This unique Victorian ring, created in the late 19th century, has the unusual feature of using the glass eye of the deceased as a centerpiece. Dr. Lindsay Fitzharris says the first artificial eyes appeared in the 15th century and were made of gold with colored animal trim. By the 16th century, Venetian craftsmen had discovered a new way of making artificial eyes from glass that could be inserted into the eye socket. Although the first glass prostheses were quite rough, uncomfortable, and brittle, the Venetian method was considered the best in the world at that time. By the mid-19th century, craftsmen from the Thuringian region of Germany made a breakthrough by perfecting the glass formula to create artificial eyes that were of better quality. However, in the 1940s, glass gave way to plastic, which was less uncomfortable and more durable. Ancient cosmetics. An amazing discovery was recently made in the depth of Turkish Anatolia. Archaeologists have found the remains of ancient cosmetics and various jewelry dating back more than 2,000 years. Apparently, this place was once a market where the main products were cosmetics and accessories for women. What's particularly interesting is that most of the finds appear to never even been used, indicating a commercial purpose. Objects discovered include fragrance bottles and makeup pigments, predominantly pink and red, reflecting the fashion trends of ancient Rome. Archaeologists have announced the discovery of previously previously undiscovered cosmetic products, which may be blush or eyeshadow similar to modern ones. In addition, shells intended for storing cosmetics were also found. Sculpture of a winged deity. In northern Iraq, archaeologists made an amazing discovery: a statue of the wind deity Lamassu. Despite the passage of centuries and its majestic size, the sculpture remained almost intact. This 2,700-year-old alabaster monument represents Lamassu, a deity with a human head, the body of a bull or lion, and bird wings, who lost his head. However, it was restored. The head is already on display at the Iraqi Museum in Baghdad. Custom officers seized it from smugglers in the 1990s. French archaeologist Pascal Baudelain, who led the excavations, noted the importance of this find, comparing its size with monuments in Egypt and Cambodia. The weight of the statue is 18 tons and its dimensions are 3.8 by 3.9 meters. This grand, centuries-old artifact once stood at the entrance to the ancient city of Dar-Sharking. It is known that it was ordered to be installed during the reign of King Sargon II in order to protect the capital of Assyria. Interesting fact, the statue was mentioned in documents of the 19th century, but then disappeared from the attention of scientists for many years. Residents of the local village of Khorsabad eventually hid the rest of the statue to protect it from destruction. This bread has been baked for 43,000 years. Evidence has been found in Australia that the Aborigines baked bread long before the Egyptians, more than 34,000 years ago. The discovery of millstones in New South Wales reveals an ancient tradition of flour making. The Aborigines, known as hunter-gatherers, also practiced agriculture. The women collected seeds from a variety of plants, including native grasses and spinifex, sometimes even from ant nests. Flour was ground on millstones, some of which are up to 50,000 years old. The resulting flour was turned into dough and baked into nutritious bread, an important element of the Aboriginal diet. With the arrival of Europeans and the introduction of white flour, traditional baking methods almost disappeared, but today there is a renewed interest in these ancient techniques and the culinary heritage of Aboriginal Australia. 120 horse skeletons. In China, archaeologists have discovered the ruins of an ancient fortified city of Yaoyan, which arose during the Bronze Age. This city, which once served as an important political and cultural hub, hid palaces, sacrificial recesses, ditches, and many other buildings. In particular, scientists discovered 6 special pits in which the skeletons of horses were found, neatly laid in layers. Mysteriously, some of these skeletons were dismembered. According to research, the animals were most likely divided into parts before being buried. In total, about 120 horse skeletons were found, including foals. This practice demonstrates the high status and prosperity of the city during those times, highlighting the importance of horses in the region. The researchers also encountered a Western Zhou-era bronze casting site, containing the remains of a specific clay mixture used to create various building shapes and foundations. Other finds include a variety of artifacts, ceramic objects, stone jewelry, lacquerware, as well as celadon and bone vessels carved with symbols reminiscent of Chinese characters.